psychopath. When you're lost, take your trust. That's me. That's so sick. I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psycho. Ooh. I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psychopath, don't love me. When you're lost, take your trust. Yeah, that's me. Oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. Yes, I'm a fraud. Call me a liar. A true psychopath.
Good morning, everyone. Nadine, thank you so much, babe. I appreciate that. Congratulations to anybody who was gifted a membership by our generous Nadine. By the way, I have dropped Nadine's Music Melts link. If you love wax melts, she makes the best. Hands down, I don't give a rat's fat kneecap what anybody else says. I will fight you in the streets. They're the best. They will smell up your entire home with deliciousness. Okay? You got to get them. And if you use the code Queen of Roasting, you will get a discount. All right. So, let me say hi to everybody. Hold on, let me scroll up here. Hey, Carol freaking Claus. Hey, Anna, Pratt Mommy. Let's see. Lucia, Missy's Angels. Nadine. Struggle is Real. AJ. Jane Doe. Renee. Good morning, everybody. It's so good to see all of you here. Hey, MK. Thanks for being here, even though you're at work. We ain't gonna tell, because the war don't snitch. Jane Doe, I feel like I said hi, but good morning again if I didn't or did. Christine, Elizabeth, Shani. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see. Music City Mom, Maxie Doodle. I think. Hey, Carrie. All right. So, all right. Let me get us right into it. There's not testimony quite yet. They're arguing over the doctors again. I want to also remind you guys where we're left off. We're going to be seeing some of the crime scene photographs that were taken. This time it's on cross-examination. Let me go ahead and make sure that my YouTube, when I'm watching on my phone, is live. That way I can chat with you guys in the now instead of being behind. No, that's annoying. All right, Sarah, let me turn this up. All right. Oh, they're already wanting to approach the bench. Don't approach the bench. There's no snacks up there. Also, if you guys missed it, because it was Daniel, good to see you. It was late last night. For me, I mean, you know, I usually go, if I'm going to do it at night, I do it at 9, right? But I went a little bit later. Alex Erickson did a fantastic live last night, going through Taylor Schabusiness, you know, just going back over some of the crime scene photos, you know, recapping the testimony. She read a couple of articles that give a good backstory. She also read the Facebook posts from Taylor Schabusiness's husband. But after that, I did a dramatic, reading of Sarah Boone's latest and greatest letter. Y'all, she big mad, huge mad, so mad. I had a hard time actually like reading some of the words because her penmanship was so very angry. So I have no idea what she could possibly be laughing about. Oh! I see we have changed shirts. We are no longer wearing the drapes from the 1972 Ramada Inn. We are now wearing the shower curtain from the Magic 8 Motel. Wow. All right, Taylor. Good morning, the collector. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you guys liked it. Hey, Aries girl, welcome in. So yeah, if and thank you. Hey, thank you, Anna. I appreciate that very much. She's at the hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. Hey, KPM, how's it going? Oh, thank you, Maxie Doodle. I'm so glad you guys liked it. I do enjoy a dramatic reading, and I did do a dramatic reading of Taylor Schabusiness's and Taylor Schabusiness's husband, her boo thing. What does he call her? Baby boo. I did a dramatic reading of those, but it's in one of the lives on Taylor Schabusiness, so I decided I would just make a separate video doing it, just so it's something that you don't have to scroll to find. You know what I'm saying? Scroll through a live. Because sometimes people don't want to do that. Hi, I'm people. Sending the thanks. Taylor Shabu. Anywho, so yeah, that's what we're going to start with today. What I'm hoping for is that today is the day we hear the interrogation video. And it's a rather lengthy video. I don't know if they're like going to play excerpts like they did with Letitia, or if they're going to, play all of it, but skip through like the parts where she's just sitting in there waiting. Because you know how detectives do that. They'll get up and leave people in the room for a while, let them think on things. So I'm curious about that. Also, before we get started, let's have a word from our sponsors just right quick.
And Kai, when you're on Jen Lou's channel, what do you do with the like button?
Smash, smash, smash!
You were called in
Yeah.
February 23rd of 2022 to assist in the investigation of a homicide that had occurred.
Yeah, would y'all please give your girl a thumbs up? It helps. The free, easy way to support the channel
call from
and your girl.
Stony Brook Lane, is that correct?
Want to hit crazy mama?
And what was the report?
There was a report that a homeowner was calling the police from that address that they had found.
I think he looks like the dad from Modern Family.
829 Stony Brook.
But I mean, what part of the house?
In the basement.
And then what
Every time they talk about this,
I responded to the
prosecutor or this defense attorney questions the witnesses. He's always about the basement, and it always makes me think of Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Just before 6:30
in the morning.
Yes, sir.
It's at the Alamo.
And what did you do initially?
Initially got there, met with the detective lieutenant on scene that was there. I met with a couple sergeants that were in the address.
Did not make the subtitles go on. Bro, what is happening here?
Shortly after being there, I did a quick neighborhood canvass. And then as time progressed, the warrant was signed, and then we waited for the doctor to arrive, and then we started to process the basement.
In the driveway, were there cars parked?
There's two cars.
What kind of cars, you know?
There was a red Jetta parked closer to the garage, and there was
Ooh, good eye, Anna. I'll have to look. Good morning, Emily.
Were they parked by the side door?
Yes.
I might went in on what? What am I gonna went in on?
you see any gold?
I probably will
Colored
one
minivan
in.
there?
Who am I kidding?
I did
I don't
not.
even have to know. But you two jokers, of course I went in. How long was the driveway? Was the driveway paved? What was it paved with? Were there weeds in the driveway? Did they use Roundup if there was no weeds? Like, come on, bro. Ooh, of course. Yes, of course I went in. How many cars were in the driveway? Do you know who owned the cars? Did you ask who owned the cars? Did you run the license plates on the cars?
I recall 2.
Why didn't you run the license plate on the cars? How many buckets were downstairs? Like,
Sorry?
get the fuck out of here, man.
There was a Jetta and I think a RAV4, if I remember correctly.
Hi, Mia. Good to see you.
I don't recall that.
Your Honor, can I approach? Detective Scanlon, I show you what's marked as Exhibit 66.
Sir, get to the microphone so we can hear.
69. Can you tell me what picture 68 or Exhibit 68 is?
Do you say 68?
Yeah, yes.
68 is a photograph of the red Jetta, I believe.
Is that parked in the driveway of 829 Stony Brook?
It is.
Is there a plate number on it?
I can't see it in this photograph.
Okay. Does it depict the house on Stony Brook Lane as well?
I believe so, yes.
The vehicles that you saw on the date of
The
February
collector
23rd,
meth is
2022
very
were,
drying to the skin.
parked in a line, sort of, in
So
the driveway, behind each other?
Yes, the Jetta was in front and the second vehicle is behind it.
And that was the RAV4?
I believe so.
please
Does
connect
Exhibit
these dots
68
with these
appear to be the
vehicles.
Vehicles that you saw when you walked up?
Yeah, based on my recollection, there was.
Oh,
a
she's the
snow-covered red
worst.
Jetta parked closer to the garage.
Okay. Then turn your attention to Exhibit 69, please. What is that?
That appears to be a picture of it from the trunk and license plate.
Nadine, I
An
would
angle of the
love
Jetta?
Yes, sir.
a Nirvana
Vehicles in that picture?
inspired one, like
No.
heart-shaped box
Same
about a
location?
girl.
Yes.
Exhibit 70? Exhibit 70, could you look at that one?
I have 67. I'm sorry, I have 66 through 69.
Okay, take a look at 66.
It's KPM. What is the deal with cars, bro? I'm gonna need you
What
to
do see
tie
in that
this
picture?
together.
I see the
I'm over here like boom
Okay,
with a big old
picture
question mark over
facing
my
the
head.
driver's side of the red Jetta as it's parked in front of the side door of 829 Stony Brook, and then the dark vehicle behind it.
Ooh, is it
Do you know if that
Nadine?
dark vehicle behind
Okay.
it belonged to Steve Hendricks?
I personally didn't check the registrations of these cars, so I don't know.
But that's at.
You got a
uh,
Cure inspired
shows
one?
The Stony Brook Lane property, correct?
Yes.
Because you know the Cure is my
And the other
personal
exhibit?
faith.
Is that
Hey,
exhibit
Chick
67?
Tracy, good to see you, babe.
I have it.
Okay, could you describe what you see there?
It's a picture from the front end of the Jetta facing west. So it's
You also should do a Sid Vicious
advantages
one,
down
like
the
my
driveway
way.
with the house on the left and the two vehicles.
The
Or
Jetta,
something
did you
else?
determine that to be Tara Pekinich's vehicle,
I didn't run registration.
Corey.
So I don't know.
but it's just another view of the vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
All of these.
The Cure
pictures do they
and
appear to
Sid
be the vehicles
Vicious.
that you saw when you came to this residence on February 23rd?
They do.
Offer exhibits.
Like for Sid Vicious, you could do
66,
My
67,
Way because he
68,
covered
69.
that, or you could do something else.
As part of your investigation, you did not find any gold-colored minivan at this residence, correct?
I did not.
Did you see any minivan on the street at all?
I did not.
When you came to this residence, you walked inside and then you waited for the search warrant to be obtained, correct?
Yeah, I got there shortly after 6:30. I did a walkthrough, looked around, got my bearings in the house.
Good morning, Squeaky Will. Yes, Mona Lisa Schabusiness is looking confident
Spend some
and
time
annoyed at
looking,
the same time.
for Mr. Therian. And then. we
Hey,
decided
Mrs.
to wait
O,
for
good to
search
see
warrants
you,
before we,
babe.
Proceeded, and we also had to wait for the doctor to arrive from Dane County. So we waited.
Did you put on?
Yes,
PPE
ma'am.
gear?
I got you, girl. I'll message
Did you
you.
put on PPE gear, protective equipment gear?
Yes.
Okay. And when Dr. Trancheta
I
arrived,
love
when
the
did you go down
cure.
to the basement?
They're
I'd
going
been
to
down the
be
basement
here
before and
in
come
the
back up. So when
Floridas,
Dr.
July
Tranqueta
29th,
arrived,
and the tickets
yeah, then
are so ridiculously
primarily Dr.
expensive.
Tranqueta,
I've seen them
Schwab,
once when I was 15.
myself,
I saw them.
Detective
This would
Cassie
just be
Peshula,
like
and then forensic
everything
specialist
if I could go see
Leandre,
them.
and forensic specialist
Hey, Elizabeth.
Charneski, then all went
Hey, Crafty
process
Chris.
the basement. Yes.
I love and
You went
adore
down the
Robert
basement
Smith.
when you
That
got
man
there
can do
just to check
zero
out.
wrong in my ojos.
And did you look at the bucket?
Zero.
When you got
Hey,
down
Deb.
there,
Good to see
were
you.
in the PPE gear?
The very first time I got there was not. There's the uniformed officers there that weren't in it. There was some question about whether the body was there and why it had not been found yet. Some question about how well we looked for it. So we did do a quick look through and then came back up. Yes, without it.
When you, Detective Scanlon, when you went down the stairs, did you see a towel over the bucket
By the time I got there, it was already removed and off the side.
laying on the floor?
I
Yes.
went and saw the cure
You looked at the
in
bucket, obviously.
19.
Did you move the
It
contents?
was the summer
of the bucket?
between my freshman and sophomore year. So I
Was there
think
other items in the
92.
bucket later on that you
And I saw
know
them
about,
at the
correct?
old
There were-
Texas Stadium where the
What
Cowboys
other
played
items were
in
the bucket?
Irving. My mom and dad got it for
There was
me
remains.
and my sister. It was the
two
first time we were ever allowed to go to a concert
types of
alone,
remains
and we
that I-
had the
that I
best time.
observed.
What kind?
There was a human head. There was genitalia in the bucket.
Let me
Hey,
stop you
True
there.
Crime Crazy. I'm doing great.
What
Hope
do you
you're
mean
doing good
genitalia?
too.
What I would recognize as a penis and testicles.
And were they laying underneath the head?
They were visible after the head was removed. Yes.
What else did you see?
I observed. a
They still
black
put on a hell of a show,
Miracle
Emily.
3
I would
kitchen
love
blade
to
knife
see them.
That was removed. Kitchen knife. I observed a yellow pocket knife, I guess, for best description of the pocket knife with a yellow handle. There was a head of a razor, like a shaving razor blade, nail, Jolly Rancher, and there was a flesh material that the doctor just described as a flesh material.
Blood in the bucket as well?
There was blood in the bucket, yes.
This is all in that black bucket, correct?
The black flea farm bucket,
Ooh.
yes. Container 1.
I'll go back and scroll through. I've blanked out a lot of yesterday.
What did you do next then after you fully investigated the contents of the bucket?
So we refer to 4 containers in the home, and it's just a matter of staying organized. With
All right,
the
I got to
recovery.
get some water. I'll be
We went
right
from
back.
left to right when looking at the basement. So we moved to container 2, which was the blue Jimmy Choo bag. And then Dr. Tranqueta set it down on a sterile blanket that he had brought. And then he started to remove the contents of it in front of us to observe.
Fair to say that all of you were going through this together as far as looking around and investigating certain things?
Yes, we're all together at this time. Yes.
And in the meantime, was Taylor Schabusiness over at the police department with Detective Groff and Detective Kemp?
She was.
And were you communicating with Detective Kemp by phone or
I
text?
don't remember which one I spoke to. I was getting phone contact from one of the 2 of them.
So information was going back between officers, correct?
Yes.
And the focus of your investigation was the basement of Stony Brook, is that fair?
The basement, and then, as we found the knives, I went upstairs and tried to identify whether or not those knives had come from the kitchen. So I did travel back upstairs to take a look at the knife block, and then I looked in the drawers to see if they had similar knives to the Miracle, the black handled knife in the bucket. So I did go upstairs to look at that.
How
At
many?
some point.
There were 2 knives in the bucket.
There was 2 knives in the bucket. The black handled kitchen knife. So I think it was a Miracle Blade 3 was the stamp, and then there was a yellow, a pocket knife, the yellow handled pocket knife.
And when you went upstairs, you didn't see any other yellow handled pocket knives, correct?
No, I've seen other Miracle laid 3 knives. There was one on the butter dish, and there was similar knives to that in the drawer. But I don't know the source or where the yellow knife was from.
And while all this was going on, the forensic specialists, Andre and Charneski, were taking pictures, correct?
Yes.
Did you find any evidence of drug use down in that basement?
I did.
What did you find down there?
There was a methamphetamine pipe, or what I recognized to be a methamphetamine pipe on the entertainment center. And there was a green gem baggie with a crystal substance that I later checked out more thoroughly.
The meth pipe that you observed, where was it?
It was on the entertainment center, kind of a makeshift dresser to the left of the bed.
And did you find drugs?
There was what I believe to be drugs, yes, next to it in the gem baggie.
When you say gem baggie, is that a plastic bag?
Yeah, a little small, like a 1 inch or 1.5 inch green baggie.
Do you know what was in the gem baggie?
I later field tested it for methamphetamine. I believe it was crystal methamphetamine.
And where was that?
That was to the right of the meth pipe.
Did you find any marijuana?
I did not know.
Did you find any packaging for marijuana?
I did not know.
Could I approach your arm? You may. I'll show you some more exhibits 70, 71, 72. Exhibit 70, do you recognize that?
I do.
What is it?
That's the entertainment center that picture depicts the methamphetamine pipe. Next to it's the green gem bag I referred to, and some other items with some placards that our forensic specialists put down photograph.
Is there any packaging from a company called Loom in Iron Mountain in that picture?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Is there any packaging from a company called Loom, Lume, in that photo?
I don't see it.
Okay. This picture, Exhibit 70, does it depict that entertainment center in the basement of Stony Brook Lane?
Yes,
Was that picture taken on or about February 23rd of 2022?
it was.
Exhibit 71, could you identify that?
That it just appears to be the same area, but a close-up of the green gem bag and the watch in front of it.
That gem bag later turned out to be methamphetamine, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Did some of it spill out on the entertainment center?
Looking at this close-up photo, there are white specks on the entertainment center. I don't know if that's that. I didn't use it. I didn't use a narcotic wipe to see that. No, I don't know.
Okay. Does that picture show that entertainment center and contents on that item from Stony Brook Lane on February 23rd?
Yes,
Okay. Could you turn your attention to Exhibit 72? Can you identify what that is?
it's the same area. It's a close-up of the gem bag.
Is that the gem bag that was on top of the entertainment center on Stony Brook Lane in the basement?
It appears to be yes.
You had a chance to take a good look at
Yeah.
that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll offer exhibit 70, 71, 72.
The objection.
No.
Those be received.
When you did your search of the basement, did you find anybody else in the basement? Any
Other
other
than the
people down
remains, other than the remains of Mr. Theory, no.
Did you canvass the area and make contact with neighbors?
I did.
Why did you do that?
I had some time, while waiting for the doctor to arrive, waiting for the warrant to get done. So rather than stand there, I decided to do a standard neighborhood canvas, to talk to some neighbors, to see if any of the neighbors were up last night or had observed anything that they would be relevant to the investigation.
Did you get any information that was relevant?
I did.
What?
I did.
What did you get?
I talked to some neighbors across the street, who told me things that they've seen. I documented their information and went to the next house.
When you were there at 829 Stony Brook Lane, did you talk to Tara Packenick?
I did not.
Did you talk to her later on?
I saw her in passing later on when they went to get some personal property, but I didn't speak to her.
Was it your understanding as part of your investigation that the deceased was frequently said to come and go from the residence on Stony Brook?
I'm sorry?
Was it your understanding that the deceased was frequently said to come and go from the Stony Brook Lane property,
That was my understanding, yes.
and that he really didn't live there?
I'm going to object. This is all presumably hearsay. If he knew that information, he would have heard that from other people.
Response?
Your Honor, detectives gather lots of information, and I believe that, they're trying to do their job and get information that I believe would be reliable. There'd be some indicia of reliability to it.
Frankly, it's already in the record, his answer. It's in from other witnesses. So I'm not going to sustain the objection, but I'm satisfied it is hearsay. So move along, Mr. Frey.
Okay, thank you. We heard some testimony about that exhibit 33, that dog collar, correct?
Yes.
You opened it up and we were able to see it.
Hey,
that
Tess.
dog collar
Good
has 2
morning.
rings on it, correct?
Yes.
Do the rings, are they able to go into each other where you could pull it tight?
My understanding of the dog collars, you have to pass the chain through to join the rings so that it can be used as like a pincher dog collar. One of the chains that was by the pub table had already been done that and was a loop. And then the chain that was on the entertainment center was not looped through. So it was just a straight chain.
It was on.
But the chain that you showed us, it had 2 loops and you couldn't put them through each other. Is that fair?
I didn't try it, but I think you passed the chain through to marry the loop.
Yes, you guys go sub to Crazy Mom.
Are you saying
She's
that
got
the
a
loop
great
is separate
channel.
chain?
That chain was as I found it.
Okay.
Do you know what is a
with that
surprising
chain-
big box? A surprisingly
The
big
2
box?
rings, you're not gonna pass them
Instapot.
through
The
each other. Is that
Instapot
fair?
box comes
I
in.
didn't try
The
to do it, but
Instapot
my
comes in a
understanding would be
huge
you
box.
could not. You'd have to pass the chain through to get the loop.
Okay.
Stop asking this man questions he's already answered. I don't know why you need clarity on this collar, sir. We all know how they
The,
work. They're cruel,
Jimmy
whether
Choo
used
bag,
on a human or a
That
dog.
was on top of the entertainment center.
It was.
And what led your attention to that?
There was
Maybe Taylor can show him. Just kidding.
some red tissue and blood, not blood, red tissue on the zipper.
Hi,
on the side of the
ATS
bag.
News. Just show him
And inside the Jimmy Choo
without
bag
putting it on him.
were different body parts, correct?
There were.
She could probably demonstrate how you pass the
The
chain
doctor
through.
identified the
Mhm.
object as the lung, yes.
Piece of liver,
He identified liver.
patella tendon,
The doctor showed me that and identified that.
pieces of skin or fatty tissue.
Oh, the detective has
Yes, sir.
take his body language. He's got his
Lots of
arms
bags in
crossed.
there,
He is defensive.
Yes.
He's tired of you, Mr. Defense lawyer man.
There was a pink and black Under Armour backpack that was found.
Here
correct?
we go.
Yes, that we referred to as container 3.
That was on the floor by the mattress.
Carol, as
Yes, was
the
that the-
official ward door knocker, did you go
I guess
and
we'll
knock
call
on
it the bed, but it
everybody's
was-
doors that you were
it
supposed to
was
knock on this
off the end
morning,
of the bed
babe?
Between the bed and the entertainment center.
Also, yes,
then
if you have
this,
not subscribed to ATS
container
News, she has
3
a fantastic
were plastic shopping bags, correct?
channel.
There was,
There were some body parts in there,
there was.
skin, fatty tissue,
Good
muscle,
morning, Ruby
Yes.
Joy.
left lung. A left lung, correct?
I don't recall. It's very likely, yes.
Pelvis,
Judge,
Yes.
I'm going to object. I don't know the relevance of asking the specific questions about this. I frankly think it's insensitive to the crime victims who are present. I don't know that it assists the jury in any way
Thank you.
to go through the specific body parts that are located in each of these containers.
What's the relevance? Knowing you were-
well, my client is charged with mutilation of a corpse, so I think the state's got to prove up their case, and I think the jury just needs to hear whatever information is out there.
So are you trying to help them prove their
It's relevant, But I
case?
can move on.
Well, I'm going to find that it's really duplicative because to the extent you believe it's relevant to the state in making their case, you've already gone into it. So I'm satisfied that we need to move on. I'm going to sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Did you find any notes or journals on the entertainment center?
There was a bag on the entertainment center that had some journals in it, yes.
Yeah, where is
Anybody's name in
MJ?
there?
Round him up, Claus. Hey,
My
Chip.
recollection is that when we kind of swiped through it, it appeared to be just at face value that they were probably Mr. Therian's writings.
Was it confirmed?
I know we
Uh-oh.
collected them, and in the event we needed to look through them later, but we didn't.
I know that yesterday you testified about the shower. Did you take a look at the shower drains?
I did.
Did you find hair in the shower?
I
Did you
can't.
find hair in the shower?
Squeaky wheel.
There was, yeah, there was hair
It's as loud as it'll go.
in the drain.
Volume
And
is turned down and
floor
the
drain.
mic for me. I'm just loud. I'll try to be quieter. I'll mute. While it's buffering. No, she's wearing. She switched 72 at the Ramada Inn to the shower curtain from 1972 at the Ramada Inn. Hold on. Let's see what's happening over here. All right, let's see about that now. Can you guys hear me? Mic check, mic check, mic check. I know it takes a minute for you guys to be able to like hear me and then tell me if you can hear me. So let's see what's going on. Let me go out and come back in and see what happens. Oh, you can. The internet or StreamYard or whatever, but it's fine. So let me just say this. As far as the court audio, there isn't anything that I can do about that. I don't run that. I don't have any control over it. It's turned up as loud as it can go. All of the settings are up as loud as they can be on StreamYard as far as sharing audio goes, but it's up to the court and a little bit of law and crime as far as how loud that volume goes. So I just reset my computer and it'll be up in just a second, and then I'll go back in StreamYard and fix it all. So, Squeaky Wheel, do you know what detective is on the stand? Because I'm curious about that, because I know which detective took her, did her interrogation. And so I'm curious if it is that same detective. So it's so weird. I cannot see. Oh, there it goes. Okay, now I can see. Yeah, I wish I could fix that. I mean, I've thought about using Streamlabs or even OBS, but like y'all, these like streaming services are not cheap. Oh, it's a medical examiner. Okay. Well, this might work out okay then, just for us to be a little bit behind, because that way, just in case there's any like accidental slips with the camera, we don't, nobody needs to see all that. I will get it right back up and running. I'm so sorry, you guys. Thanks for everybody for hanging in. I appreciate it. I get that you guys might need to go if you want to, see the stream or whatever. So I don't blame you. You don't want to miss any testimony. Usually I like to see the cross exam, but this attorney, I'm not a fan. Excuse me. Hang on. Yeah, his poor mom. I feel awful that she has to hear any of this, really. I don't know. I think I have to really give props to the family and their strength for listening to this stuff, because I don't know if I could do it. I don't know. They say, I mean, I've heard parents give interviews before, and mainly what they say is they need to know exactly what happened. And so I get that too. I don't know if I could. All right, let's go check the progress of the computer. See what's happening. I get so frustrated when it does this, because I have literally changed all of the settings so that it doesn't update while I'm streaming. But apparently Windows 11 is like, phooey on your settings, ma'am. We don't care. We'll update when we're ready. I'm sure that's what it was. Probably something ridiculous like that. Okay, perfect. It's all back up. Just give me 1 sec, guys, okay? All right, it's doing its thing, and I'll be right back into StreamYard momentarily. I apologize for the delay, you guys, and the unprofessionalism. I cannot stand when there is when I'm streaming and it just does that, where you can't hear anything and you're like, what happened? And it's so frustrating. All right, so let's see what's going on here. Anyway, so now I'm curious. Okay, Tess, I just feel bad. You guys know I'm hard on myself. Anyway, I'm not going to apologize anymore, though. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, do you guys think that now that they're up to the medical examiner testimony, that the next testimony is going to be the I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, for the I think we might hear the interrogation video, to be honest with you, because the way that they're presenting this case feels chronological, and part of the reason that they went back to Shad's mom's house was because Taylor was telling them stuff. So I'm kind of curious now if that's what the deal is. Like they're going to do the interrogation video after the medical examiner. And by the way, so in the central time zone, I can't even talk. It's 9:27 a.m. So we have like about 30 minutes before they take their morning break. They usually do it around 10, and we will be behind, and so we'll get to skip through that break. So that's nice. So let's see here. Come on, computer. Also, I would just like to say that McAfee has gotten quite belligerent with reminding me that my online protection has ended with them, but I don't need them because I use something else and theirs was really, really expensive and I'm not going to do it anymore. And no matter what I do, no matter how much I say, no, thank you, remove me from your list, don't email me anymore, no matter how I say it or how many times I say it, they don't give a rat's fat kneecap. Every single day, at least twice a day, I get a reminder. Your online protection has ended. Like I didn't realize it the other 87 times that you reminded me and I clicked no thanks and close. Thanks for reminding me again. All right, let's see what's happening. All right, give me just 1 sec, guys. I'll be right back. Hello, I'm back. All right, let's see what's going on over here in this trial. Let me get over here to the YouTubes. Well, my computer is thinking. I would bet my favorite polish that there's an update. Oh, hello, Alice. Yeah, that's what's going on because it's really laggy. All right, just have to be patient. Thank you, Squeaky Wheel. I was saving that as a last resort because I'm kind of lazy that way sometimes. And yeah, I need to do it completely, uninstall it. It's so ridiculous. All right, come on. It's thinking. Come on. Can you guys hear me okay? Bruh, this is annoying. Let me see what's happening here. There. All right, okay. Let me just add to the stream. We'll rewind it to where the medical examiner starts, and then we'll go from there. Hey, Trinity, good to see you. All right, now we're ready. Okie dokie. Sorry, you guys. Thanks for hanging in there. I appreciate this. All right, here we go. And we're ready. As soon as it'll let me click over there to push play. Come on. There we go. All right.
Good morning.
Oh, thank you, Trinity. Thank you so much.
My
All right,
name
I'm
is
going to be.
INCRANCHIDA.
Okay, and with that, the witness is yours, Mr. Lizette.
Good morning, Dr. Tranquita. Can you tell the jury how you are currently employed?
Good morning. I'm currently employed as a deputy medical examiner for Dane and Rock counties of Wisconsin.
And how long have you worked in Dane County Medical Examiner's Office?
I began my employment at the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office on July 1st, 2011.
You are currently the deputy medical examiner there. Have you held other positions at the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office?
Yes, I have.
And what other positions have you held?
I was previously chief medical examiner of the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office for approximately 12 years.
And the decision to no longer be chief and to now be deputy, is that a voluntary decision on your part?
That is correct. I've stepped down to assist with family care.
And Dr. Tranquita, what was your position or employment on February 23rd of 2022?
I believe at the time I was serving as a deputy medical examiner for Dane County.
And what was Dane County's relationship with
At that point in time, Brown County did not have a medical examiner's office, so we were providing coverage and assistance with forensic services for Brown County.
Doctor, can you discuss briefly your educational background that is related to the position of medical examiner?
Of course. I did my pre-medical school training at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I went to medical school at Wayne State University School of Medicine in Detroit, Michigan, where I received my MD. I specialized in anatomic and clinical pathology and did a residency at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I further went on to subspecialize in forensic pathology, and I did a fellowship in forensic pathology at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner of the City of New York. I further went on to do subspecial forensic cardiac pathology and forensic neuropathology. I served as a senior medical examiner in New York City for approximately 8 years before I went on to accept the position as chief in Dane County.
So doctor, in total, how many years have you worked professionally as a postgraduate and I think you had fellowship as well, and a post-fellowship medical examiner?
Approximately 20 years at this point.
And what are the primary job duties of a medical examiner?
As a medical examiner and as a forensic pathologist, my primary duties are to investigate the cause and manner of death in cases where there is a threat to public safety. Oftentimes people think of this as criminal activity, but it can also refer to communicable disease, workplace deaths, or any death where there is an unexpected and unexplained cause at the time of the discovery.
Now, you mentioned medical examiner, but also forensic pathologist. Are those two things the same?
Forensic pathology is a definition of the specialty of medicine that I practice. Medical examiner is the name given to the role that I play in the community. A medical examiner is often a doctor or forensic pathologist, but not necessarily. There can be a lay medical examiner who is somebody that is appointed in the community to serve this function, and they may, for example, contract out to a forensic pathologist or to a hospital pathologist to perform their autopsies.
Is it fair to say that when you were working as the Dane County Deputy Medical Examiner, Chief Medical Examiner, you were essentially fulfilling both of those roles?
I liked his
That is
explanation.
correct. Our approach. We donned Tyvek suits, gloves, mattresses, or a number of crumpled sheets and bedding.
All right, I'm just going to speed him up
Doctor,
just
I
a
believe
tiny
you
bit.
mentioned essentially in the room, the four main containers where human remains were located. Is that consistent with your recollection?
That is correct, within that room, yes.
Because we're not
The
really all
bucket,
that far behind.
The blue bag on top of
And
the dresser, the
reviews.
pink
Long time
and
no
gray bag on the
see.
floor, and then the tote. Are those the four locations where human remains were located in the room?
That is correct.
And can you just briefly describe the process that was used by the medical examiner's office to collect those remains?
Of course. These containers that contain the human remains were photographed as they were, or as they sat in their location. We then documented the external appearance of the containers. After that, a evidence sheet was placed out on the floor to try to collect any trace evidence that might be present either on the bag or within any of the bag's contents. I then opened each of the bags, removed the contents, and laid them out on the evidence sheet for inspection.
And can you describe for the jury sort of big picture on a scene like this, which is, I presume, unusual, what sorts of things you are looking for or attempting to ascertain as you're walking through the room and finding remains in various locations?
As I go through a room and evaluate the room, I'm looking for evidence of a disturbance, a struggle, or an altercation. I'm looking for signs of biological material which may tell me where a body part may be located. I'm also looking for evidence that may have contributed to the death. In other words, instruments, objects, weapons, evidence of drug paraphernalia. In this case in particular, I'm also looking for places that a body may be concealed, or that might be evidence of movement of a body from one location to another.
Doctor, you mentioned some of those things like weapons or the instrumentality of the crime. Were those things noted on your investigation or observation?
Yes, they were.
And what was noted specifically?
On a black standing table besides the bed, there was a gray metal chain. On the dresser, on the left wall of the basement, there was also a gray metal chain. Recovered from some of the containers as well were multiple knives, some of which had a bent blade and one of which had a broken tip.
Specifically as it relates to the human remains that are located, as you're collecting those items, are you sort of conducting an inventory or attempting to ensure that you have everything that you need with respect to?
You're
body
welcome,
evidence,
Melissa. Thank you
cut off?
guys all for being here. Okay, I'll be quiet
Yes, I
again.
am. I'm trying to recover as much of the individual as possible to try to ascertain that as much evidence as can be gained has been collected.
As you were going through the room, did you note that it was possible you did not have the entire body present in that room?
Yes, I did.
Did you note specifically what was missing?
On my inventory, I believe I was missing the right thigh, specifically from about the waist to about the knee. I believe that I was missing as well I was also missing the left thigh and left leg.
At some point in time, were you made aware that portions of the body may be at another location?
Yes, I was.
Did you travel to that other location?
Yes, I did.
And where was that?
This was a police storage unit offsite.
What did you do upon arrival there?
Upon arrival to the police storage unit, I was directed towards a van or minivan that was in the storage unit, and I was told that there was a possibility that there might be additional body parts within the storage van.
And did you actively participate in attempting to recover the body parts from that van?
Yes, I did. My process was similar. I donned a Tyvek, gloves, protective mask, and a protective visor. We laid out an evidence sheet, and then we went through the contents of the van to determine if there were additional body parts.
And were body parts located?
Yes, they were.
What did you find?
I believe we recovered the right femur or leg bone of the thigh of the decedent. We also recovered a portion of left thigh, and we also recovered a portion of left leg from about the level of the knee to the ankle.
And doctor, was there anything noteworthy about the parts that you recovered from the van?
When they were recovered from the van, they were placed in, I believe, a crock pot box. There was evidence of skeletal trauma, including sawing, chop injuries, start and stop injuries of the bone consistent with dismemberment.
Anything else about the amount of flesh that would remain on those items that were recovered from the van?
Specifically, the right femur had been defleshed. In other words, the skin, soft tissues, and muscle had been removed from the bone so that it was largely stripped down to the bone itself.
Doctor, I want to talk about the evidence recovery process and the chain of custody as it relates to the human remains. Can you describe what that process is?
The nature of evidentiary work is maintaining a chain of custody. In other words, that the location of the remains and the custody of the remains is documented for each step along the way. At the scene, the evidence is photographed in the presence of witnesses. It is placed in a secured and sealed evidence bag. And then on the outside of the bag, we attempted to write and document which container, which pieces came from, to attempt to recreate or be able to follow the story of the evidence as it goes from the scene through transport all the way to the medical examiner's office. When we use a secured body bag, what we mean is it's an intact body bag that's labeled on the outside. And then we also place a security seal, which is intact and numbered. We photograph and document the seal to show that the seal is intact and that the seal that was placed at the scene is the same seal that we're cutting at the medical examiner's office.
And then do you recall what specifically the process was for transporting the remains to the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office for autopsy was?
Yes, I do. The transport driver was notified, the driver was mobilized, and then the driver took custody of the body bags, loaded them in the van, and then the driver and the body was escorted back to the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office.
So then, doctor, ultimately, did you perform an autopsy on the remains that were recovered?
Yes, I did on February 25th.
And where did that take place?
That took place at the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office in McFarland, Wisconsin.
Do you recall who was present for that autopsy?
Yes, I do.
Who was that?
Present for the autopsy was Brown County law enforcement and our own morgue technician.
Commissioner Akita should have done this at the outset, but I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 73. Can you identify that document?
Yes, I can. Exhibit 73 is a copy of my curriculum vitae or resume.
Does that appear to be accurate as of the presentation?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of this.
Any objection?
Is that Exhibit 73?
It is.
No objection.
Received.
And then, Doctor, I would ask you to review the photographs that are depicted in 74, 75, and 76. Have you had an opportunity to review those?
Yes, I have.
And could you just briefly describe for the jury what is depicted in Exhibit 74?
Would you like me to show the photograph as well?
I intend to publish it if I could, so.
Exhibit 74 is a photograph of a blue gloved hand with a gray label on it. It is holding a blue security seal that is present around a body bag zipper. The gray 0012227.
Did you know where that photograph would have been taken?
This is Andrew's office morgue.
No, you're not experiencing technical difficulties. I muted it. So what I wanted to just take a second to point out here is that hearing this first bit, whatever, all the things that happened in that room happened almost immediately, meaning they got down to doing whatever, right? And it was very, very quick that it turned very badly, because this stuff that they're talking about having been done took some time. And I think she was there maybe a total of maybe, I don't think, it sounds like 8 hours maybe she was in that house. So she spent a good bit of time doing all of
A
this.
photograph taken from the inside of the Dane County morgue. It depicts an open body bag that contains 4 smaller containers, or 4 smaller bags inside. Containers 1 through 4.
Again, what is the depiction of that particular exhibit? Is that consistent with your recollection of how the remains were recovered and stored when you left the Stony Brook residence?
That is correct.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of those exhibits and ask for permission to publish all 3.
Any objection to 74, 75, and 76, Mr. Fairley?
Yes, Your Honor, defense objects to Exhibits 74, 75, 76, more prejudicial than probative, relevancy, and duplicitous arguments.
Overruled. Then you can publish the picture.
Judge, while we're waiting for this to fire up, could we have a sidebar with counsel?
An issue I need to take up with the attorney, so I'm going to excuse you. We're going to take our mid-morning break right now, and it'll be about 10 minutes. So all rise for that.
I think tonight, after I'm done with streaming, I'm going, after I end after testimony is done for today, I'm going to go back and try to establish a more clear timeline. So, because this is heinous.
Yes.
With respect to the court, just as further additional argument,
Want to further argue my decision?
no,
Go ahead.
Oh,
Your
Oh.
Honor, it's just kind of, in my opinion, sort of highly unusual that this picture, about, the cause and manner of death, the picture isn't going to really add too much, in my opinion, but I totally respect the court's ruling. I just want to make sure I made all my arguments to the court.
Sure. And I understand that. Photographs can be helpful to juries in understanding what witnesses are testifying to. For example, I think that argument could be made probably regarding every single photograph that's been entered into evidence, and that is, well, we can tell you what it looked like, and so you don't need to see a picture of it. Photos can be helpful; they can, and so I understand that that argument. The doctor could just simply describe everything, but the question is this going to be helpful to the jury, and will the prejudicial effect outweigh probative value? I do think it'll be helpful to the jury, so for those reasons, I'm going to allow to be admitted. So that's the order of the court. Anything before we take a recess, Mr. Lezay?
Just briefly, so on the issue of the photograph, while we are showing it to the jury, I would ask that the media not show a copy of that photograph on the live stream.
all right. Now we're caught all the way up, and they're not going to be back in court for another couple of minutes. So let me make sure we're all the way live. All right. Everybody enjoying the white noise?
Anything to take up before we go back on the record with the jury, Mr. Lezay?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Freilich?
No, thank you.
Very good. Then we'll bring in the jury.
Bring in the jury.
Come on back up and take a witness stand.
Oh. All right.
Hey, you seated. Okay, we're back on the record, and with that, Mr. Lezay, and the witness is yours.
I think we were about to publish the 3 photographs that the doctor had previously described. Is that 74, 75, and 76?
Yes.
Exhibit 74 that you previously described, is that now visible on the screen? Described, is that now visible on the screen?
That is correct.
And exhibit 76 that you previously described, is that now visible on the screen? Thank you, Doctor. Now, Doctor, if you could confirm the human remains from Shad Therian, you received them in the form that was just demonstrated in those photos, is that correct?
That is correct.
From a chain of custody and evidence standpoint, did everything appear to be in order when you received it at the Dane County Medical Examiner's office prior to autopsy?
Yes, they did.
Can you give a general description of the process that was utilized to conduct the autopsy in this case?
Of course. At the scene, we performed the examination as I previously described. In addition, because this occurred during the time of the pandemic, we also did a nasopharyngeal swab to determine if the decedent was COVID positive, and he was. Upon beginning the examination, our first step is usually to take x-rays of the body. And this is a very helpful tool that we use to try to determine if there's any fractures, foreign objects, or what the general condition is of the skeletal system of the decedent. For this, the bag can be intact, which is a helpful way of doing it. Once the bag is opened, the next step is to begin to take as-is photographs. In other words, photographs of the body exactly as it's received, before it's cleaned, before it's washed, before anything is removed. The next step after that is to collect trace evidence, if any can be found. This can involve a sexual assault kit, swab, fingernail clippings, everything in an effort to try to find any DNA evidence that might be useful. Once that is done, the body can then be washed and cleaned, and then we begin our external examination. The external examination is an examination of the outside of the body, not only for any identifying marks, tattoos, scars, but also to get a sense of what injuries are present, what trauma is present on the body, and if we have the entire body present as we suspected at the scene. So typically at that point, we begin to take our inventory of what is present, and then we also begin to examine each fragment to see what is present, what is trauma, what is artifact, and what is real injury.
And the process that you described as the general process, is that what you utilized here?
That's correct. And by the documentation of the external, we take photographs, we take measurements, and I take diagrams as well to try to recreate for the reader what I see at the table.
And to reiterate, ultimately, what is the goal of conducting the autopsy?
The ultimate goal is to determine the cause and manner of death. But a secondary goal is to try to document the findings that are present so that if somebody challenges or disagrees with these findings, that the evidence is there, that I can provide my explanation for my reasoning and a historical record of what goes on within the autopsy room.
And before we get into the specifics, ultimately, were you able to determine what you believe to be a cause and manner of death for Shadtherian?
Yes, I was.
Doctor, is it typical that not only the cause and manner of death, but the findings or the bases to support those findings are generally outlined in a report?
Yes, they are.
And did you prepare such a report in this case?
Yes, I did.
Dr. Trinket, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 78. Can you review that and identify that document for the jury?
Exhibit number 78 is a copy of the autopsy report that was generated on our case number 223433 for Shadtherian.
Doctor, is that a 14-page report?
That is correct.
And you believe that report accurately outlines your findings following the autopsy and investigation into the death of Shadtherian?
Yes, I do.
And are the opinions that are outlined in this report and the final diagnoses, are those opinions that are consistent with your medical training and experience?
Yes, they are.
Judge, I would move for the admission of Exhibit 78.
The objection, Mr. Freilich?
No.
That'll be received.
And Doctor, again, before we get into the bases or the specifics, what was your opinion as it relates to the cause and manner of death of Shatherian?
It is my medical opinion that the cause of death of Shatherian is strangulation and that the manner of death is homicide.
Can you explain for the jury the difference between cause and manner?
Of course. Cause of death is the mechanism by which somebody dies. If one wants to think of it as an example, a gunshot wound of the head is a cause of death. That is a mechanism by which somebody dies. The manner of death is the category or classification of that mechanism. So in other words, a gunshot wound of the head can be a suicide, it can be an accidental death, or it can be a homicidal death. The cause of death you want to think about as the mechanical process which results in someone's death, and the manner of death is the circumstances or the totality of the story, including the investigation and the scene findings, and the history, which helps you categorize that mechanism in terms of the class of death that this occurs.
And Doctor, I'll first address the issue of cause of death. Can you outline for the jury the findings or the circumstances that support your opinion that the cause of death in this case was strangulation?
Of course. On examination of the body, I am looking for any findings that might indicate what the potential cause of death might be. In this case, on my examination of the decedent, I had a number of findings that were consistent with a strangulation death. To begin with, I had plethory or cyanosis of the head and upper neck. And by plethory or cyanosis, I mean a deep purplish discoloration or congestion of the head and neck, such that I know that return of blood flow back to the body from the head is interrupted or blocked. Along those lines, I had numerous petechial hemorrhages or burst blood vessels of the skin of the face, of the conjunctivae around the eyes or the pink around the eyes. I had hemorrhages as well of the whites of the eyes or the sclera, and also had hemorrhages of the mucosa of the inside of the mouth. These are all consistent with sharp pressure being applied to the neck and the blood vessels of the neck, causing bursting of these blood vessels. In addition, the tongue was protuberant outside of the mouth, consistent with the tongue being driven up and outwards during the process of strangulation. When I examined the tongue itself, there was a patterned indentation on the surface of the tongue, consistent with an object being pressed hard across the tongue such that it left an indentation within the tongue. There were also abrasions or scrapes on the surface of the tongue, and there was an intramuscular hemorrhage or bleeding within the tongue. This is often seen in cases of strangulation where the tongue can be trapped between the teeth and the jaw is driven upwards and trapping the tongue between the teeth. Once I dissected down the neck, I had hemorrhages of the muscles of the neck as well. And this is also classically seen often in cases of strangulation, where blunt force trauma is applied to the neck during the process of compression, and you have injury and bleeding within the neck muscles. These hemorrhages were not only the neck muscles, but they were also in the soft tissues surrounding the trachea or airway or windpipe, surrounding the larynx or upper airway, all the way down to the cervical spine or the spinal column as it goes all the way down to the vertebra. So in other words, I had hemorrhages going from the surface all the way down deep into the neck muscle structures, indicative of significant force being applied to the neck.
Just wanted to follow up on that particular last point. Doctor, you indicated in multiple areas where you saw evidence of strangulation. did those same areas allow you to make some sort of determination or form an opinion as to the amount of force or the amount of time that force would have been applied to the neck?
Objection, speculative, speculation.
I think that's exactly what his professional role is.
Overruled.
Well, yes, squeaky wheel, that's true. However, you have to find physical evidence to support what she's saying. But I get what you
On
mean.
the soft tissue, on the anterior aspect of the cervical spine. This is hemorrhage deep through multiple layers of the neck, consistent with a great deal of force being applied and a great deal of injury.
Doctor, as we've heard, obviously there is a significant amount of mutilation to the body or disruption of the body in multiple different places. Can you describe how you are able to determine that those other cutting injuries to the portions of the body are postmortem as opposed to causing the death of Shad?
In my examination, there was extensive post-mortem mutilation of the body. And I believe that this is post-mortem mutilation because there is no hemorrhage associated with these injuries. In other words, I have multiple sharp force trauma with multiple stab wounds, multiple punctures, multiple incised wounds of the skin, deep cuts within the muscles and tendons and soft tissue, deep cuts within the bone. But all of these cuts are non-hemorrhagic. In other words, there's no blood or bleeding associated with it. These are consistent with post-mortem mutilation. In other words, there's no circulation going on. There's very little blood actually still left within the vascular system. This is all consistent with the body being dismembered after death.
And, doctor, at this point, I intend to show you a photograph which is sensitive in nature. I intend to publish that photograph for the jury. So I'm putting the jury and also the media on notice that I intend to use the photograph at this point and then have the judge describe it. '77. Yes. Doctor, clerk is showing you what's been marked previously as Exhibit 77. Can you identify what that photograph is?
Yes, I can.
What is it?
This is a depiction of the right side of Shad Therian's face at the autopsy examination. In the photograph is the right side of his face, along with the grayscale ruler with the case number, and also a L-shaped ABFO ruler, which is an American Board of Forensic Odontology ruler. It shows dimensions in 2 scales. The right side of his face shows his eyes closed and his tongue protuberant, pledged between the right side of his mouth. He has abrasions or scrapes that are visible on the right side of his face and nose and cheek. At the lower aspect of the photograph are numerous sharp force injuries depicted on the upper chest.
Your Honor, I would ask for the admission of that photograph, or move for admission of the photograph, and ask for permission to publish at this time.
Okay, objection has already been made.
Same objection as before.
I'm going to overrule the objection and the picture can be published. Yeah, and I'll note that the media is not allowed to publish this photo. They're indicating in the affirmative.
Doctor, the photograph
ATS
depicted in
Hold on
Exhibit
a second.
77,
Just
and is that now
pause this
visible on?
really quick. ATS, no, I do not think that she's looking at the picture. I think that she has been instructed wisely, probably, by her attorney to look down during this portion of the testimony in an effort to make her appear remorseful.
On the screen?
Yes, it is.
Can you utilize that photograph to describe some of the indicia of strangulation that you had previously outlined for the jury?
Yes, I can. As you look at his face compared to the lower aspect of his body, which is visible in the upper right corner, you can see how much more purple and how much more congested it is compared to the rest of his body. Similarly, particularly you can see around the cheek, there are small pinpoint hemorrhages or circular petechial hemorrhages also on the right temple, which are burst hemorrhages present on the skin. And these are referred to as petechial hemorrhages, caused from ruptured capillaries on the skin surface. His tongue is protuberant and visible in this photograph coming out the right side of his mouth. Subsequently, as we examine the tongue further, we can see that there are abrasions and contusions of the tongue from impacts between the teeth. There is also a ligature oppression, as we previously described, on the surface of the tongue, which is not visible here. It's hidden by his mouth.
And doctor, you talked about the coloration and how that's relevant to the strangulation as the cause of death. Is the coloration from the body, is that also relevant to your determination that injuries to the body were postmortem?
It does, yes.
Doctor, in addition to preparing a report and taking photographs of the injuries, do you also utilize diagrams?
Yes, I do.
And what is the purpose of those diagrams?
My primary purpose is to document the findings in as many different ways as I can. I take photographs, I take diagrams, I take measurements. I want to recreate the findings for the viewer, for the reader, so that they can go back to them and see what I saw at the autopsy table. I also find the diagrams are easier for people to review and people to look at who do not look at bodies on a regular basis. They're less traumatic. They protect the privacy of the decedent a little more. And I think that they are a document which I've found to be very valuable for conveying what I found in a very easy to understand and not disturbing way.
Doctor, I've provided Exhibit 79. Can you take a look at that and describe what that is for the jury?
Exhibit 79 is a copy of my autopsy notes and diagrams that I generated on this case. It includes head and neck diagrams. It includes diagrams of the entire body and diagrams of the skeletal system as well.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of Exhibit 79 and ask for permission to publish the diagrams.
Any objection?
No.
All right. That can be published to the jury. I'll receive it and it can be published to the jury.
And Judge, for the diagrams and the subsequent discussion, could the lights be dimmed as well?
Sure.
Dr. Tranquita, is the screen now displaying what would be the first page of Exhibit 79?
Yes, it does.
And can you note what's of importance from your medical perspective as to these diagrams?
Of course. This is the front page of what's referred to as my autopsy notes. And this allows me a front and back view of the body to depict findings. Also, a spot at the top where I can enter the general demographic features. In other words, weight of the body as it's recovered, approximated age, frame, hair color, eye color, what's the state of the postmortem changes such as rigor mortis or livor mortis. And then with the front and back diagrams, I'm able to show sort of general findings. In this case, because there were so many sharp force injuries and injuries of the head and neck, I saved them for separate diagrams. And this is more for general findings. The most relevant ones that I want to kind of emphasize on is there is marked congestion of the head and neck, but the rest of the body is relatively pale. There were some contusions or blunt force trauma injuries of the remainder of the body. There was a contusion on the upper aspect of the left side of the chest, a contusion on the upper aspect of the right side of the chest. There were abrasions of the right upper extremity. There was a contusion or bruise of the anterior aspect of the right knee, and there was a collapsed blister on the left heel. He also had a gray metal ring that was present on the little finger of the left hand.
Doctor, on the screen, are we now showing page 2 of Exhibit 79?
Yes, we are.
And specifically, I draw your attention to the top right-hand corner of that. There's a depiction or a drawing. What is that?
In the top right-hand drawing is a depiction of the surface of the decedent's tongue. With my crude art skills, I apologize. But I'm depicting where the arc-like abrasions are present on the tongue, and that's at the tip, those curvilinear interrupted abrasions. There was a contusion of the right side of the tip of the tongue, or bruise. And then on the back and middle aspect of the right side of the tongue, there were 2 parallel, very patterned, very regular indentation rows consistent with a potential ligature being pressed against the neck. Being pressed against the tongue.
Doctor, based on your prior experience with strangulation cases, is that something that is typically seen or ordinarily seen where there's a potential ligature strangulation, that you may see ligature marks not only on the neck but also on other parts of the body?
Yes, it occurs when the ligature shifts during the assault. If the ligature shifts, often the victim or the decedent will try to get their chin underneath the ligature. I can sometimes see injuries across the chin, across the lower lip, or inside the mouth as the ligature is shifting in position before it's placed again on the neck.
Doctor, you mentioned that you were present on scene and had the opportunity to observe 2 metal dog chains that were collected by law enforcement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you note any consistency between those chains that were collected and the marks that you observed on Chad Therian's body?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
When I'm observing injuries or trying to interpret injuries, I'm looking for patterns. Anything that I can use to convey to an investigator, hey, you may want to look for this at the scene. In this case, we had very organized, repeating, interrupted indentations on the surface of the tongue, very evenly spaced apart. This would not be inconsistent with the pattern of a chain and the chain links as they twist, leaving separate corner impressions on the surface of the tongue.
Doctor, does the screen now depict the 3rd page of Exhibit 79?
Yes, it does.
And could you describe for the jury the significance of these particular diagrams?
Because there were so many findings, I separated out the head and neck diagrams to a separate diagram. This diagram depicts multiple different views of the decedent's head and neck. Similar to the photograph, we can see that there is congestion of the head above the level of decapitation. In other words, there's purplish discoloration or cyanosis or plethora of the upper aspect of the neck and head, consistent with congestion. On the right side of the decedent's face and nose is an abrasion. There are contusions at the left temple, just above the ear, and at the right temple, just above the ear as well, or bruises. Once I dissected down the neck, I found hemorrhages of the muscles of the neck on the left side and right side of the neck. I also found sharp force injuries of the outer aspect of the left eyebrow and outer aspect of the left upper eyelid, and then also on the left side of the tip of the nose. I believe that these are also post-mortem artifact because they're not hemorrhagic. There's no redness, there's no swelling. This is consistent with cutting a body that's already been dead. Across the neck, I am depicting the point of decapitation of the decedent. This was roughly at the level of cervical vertebra C5, C6. We have about 7 cervical vertebrae. So it's just above the base of the neck, where we have complete decapitation. In other words, it's going completely through the neck and the head is separate from the remainder of the body. There were also a number of sharp force injuries above and below the level of decapitation, consistent with multiple cuts attempted as the person is trying to get through the neck.
Now, Doctor, does the screen show what is page 4 of Exhibit 79?
Yes, it does.
I don't think I will ask you to describe every injury that's denoted on this particular diagram, as we would be here a while, but could you describe generally what is depicted in this diagram?
Of course. This is a front and back view of the decedent's body, where I'm attempting to show the points of dismemberment, as well as points of sharp force injury that are present. The contusions I've also included here to try to show where they are, or bruises and abrasions. But for the most part, I want to focus on the sharp force trauma. In particular, in this case, we have the head has been decapitated at the level of the lower neck. The back has been largely flayed and defleshed. In other words, the skin of the back has been removed. Also, the muscles of the back have been removed so that we have exposed rib cage and spine. The torso, so extending from about the neck to the groin, has been bisected or cut in half at the level of the lumbar vertebra or the vertebra of the lower spine, so that we have access to the inside of the torso, both the pelvis and the upper aspect of the chest and abdomen. We have attempted amputations at the level of the right shoulder and right elbow. We have numerous cuts and stab wounds of the extremities. When we get to the abdomen and thighs, we have areas of skin removal where flaps of skin have been removed. Where we get to the right thigh, all of the soft tissue has been removed, so we're down to the bone. In other words, all we have is exposed femur for the length of the femur. When we get to the lower extremities, the left lower extremity has been amputated to the level of the knee. The kneecap or patella was recovered separately. We have another amputation from the knee to the level of the ankle, and the left foot was recovered from within the left chest cavity, placed within there. At the right lower extremity, we have, again, the femur, which has been largely defleshed, but I was able to reapproximate the pieces of muscle and pieces of skin to recreate what was there. And then we had the right knee to the right foot still intact.
Doctor, based on your training and experience, what kind of amount of time would be necessary in order to create this sort of disruption to a body?
Objection, speculation,
Overruled.
foundation.
Overruled. It is my medical opinion that this would be quite a few hours. We have decapitation, we have dismemberment, we have transection of the torso. Subsequently, internally, the body has been eviscerated. In other words, we have entered inside the body through various cuts, both at the abdomen and between the ribs, where the victim's organs have been removed, largely one by one. We have castration of the decedent. The decedent has been castrated as well. We have cutting or sawing through chop mark injuries of the bones. It is my medical opinion that this would have taken quite a great deal of time.
And Doctor, is the screen now depicting page 5 of Exhibit 79?
Yes, it is.
And what are you attempting to denote here as opposed to on the previous exhibit?
Again, I don't want to overload one particular set of diagrams. So in this set of diagrams, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show the points of skeletal dismemberment. In other words, where on the skeletal system the body has been taken apart. So here I'm illustrating that the head and neck have been severed at the level of C5, C6. I have that the torso has been severed at the level of about L3, L4 of the lumbar spine. I've shown that the pelvis has been cut right at the pubic bone and separated open. I've shown that there is attempt to sharp force trauma at the distal right arm or right humerus, and also at the proximal right forearm or right radius and ulna. I'm showing that we have amputations or severing of the left femur, both just proximal to the hip and at the distal left femur. I've shown that the left kneecap has been separated, and I've also shown that the left lower leg has also been separated at the distal tibia and fibula.
Again, this is just a reminder that this testimony is the medical examiner. It's going to be incredibly detailed, and viewer discretion is advised.
At the right lower extremity, the right hip socket has been opened and separated. I have severing of the right lower extremity at the level of the knee, and the kneecap on the right side is received with the lower leg.
Doctor, you had mentioned attempted dismemberment or attempted amputation. Can you describe what you mean by that?
Of course, there are some areas where there are cuts through the muscle and cuts through the skin, but they do not completely transect the limb or extremity. So there's evidence of cutting deeply into these tissues in the postmortem state, but not complete transection, so they are still attached. On the bones, there's multiple evidence of sharp force trauma to the bones, even in areas where the bone is still in one piece. Evidence of previous attempts to cut or saw through or transect the bone. These pieces of bone were collected.
Non-responsive.
Just wait for another question, Doctor. Go ahead.
Doctor, is it typical that in the course of your investigation into a death that you would ask for toxicology to be performed on the decedent?
Yes, it would.
And was that done in this particular case?
Yes, it was.
What were some of the challenges that you faced with respect to toxicology?
The largest challenge was the amount of disruption of the vascular system. This body was essentially bloodless. So what I did is at the scene, I collected a hemorrhagic fluid that was present in one of the containers where the body was kept, with the hope that some of this was blood that was drained from the decedent's remains as they sat within the container. And these were submitted for toxicology. In addition, I saved tissues as well, should there have been a need for that.
Based on your training and experience, are there concerns about the accuracy of the toxicology based on how you had to obtain the fluid for toxicology?
Yes, there are.
And what are those concerns?
This was hemorrhagic fluid that was collected from in this case, the bucket where a portion of the decedent's remains were recovered. Whether this all represents the decedent's blood, somebody else's blood, substances that may have been present in the bucket before the decedent was placed in there, whether the blood is entirely blood or a combination of blood and cerebrospinal fluid and vomit and other fluids, whether there is water present in the bucket as well. So as a result, these findings are noted, but they should be taken in that context and with those caveats.
And in terms of the toxicology report, what substances did you note from the fluid that was submitted for toxicological testing?
From the fluid that was submitted, we found cocaine. We found cocaine metabolite benzoyl ecgonine. We found methamphetamine. We found amphetamine. We found delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, or the active component of marijuana. And I believe we also found nicotine, which is present in most tobacco products.
Now, doctor, you found a number of those substances in the fluid. Are those substances, in your opinion, contributory to Shatharian's death in any way?
I do not believe so, no.
I think you mentioned this earlier, doctor, when you were describing the general process of the autopsy. But is swabbing of the body something that you typically do?
When I suspect that there may be the involvement of another individual within a death, yes, swabbing is something that I typically do.
And is that something that was done in this particular case?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe the process for swabbing and then the process for maintaining the integrity of the evidence that's collected in those swabs?
Of course. Before the body is cleaned or altered in any way, while it is still resting on an evidence sheet, what I do is I collect DNA swabs of the external surfaces of the body. Typically, I'll go for areas where I suspect the greatest possibility of contact. In this case, I believe they are all listed on pages 14 of the autopsy report. So it includes the left and right sides of the forehead, the left and right cheeks, the left and right sides of the chin, both sides of the chest, what was left of the skin surface of the abdomen, what was left of the skin surface of the back, the left and right arms, the left and right forearms, the left and right wrists, the palmar aspects of the left and right hands, the dorsal aspects of the left and right hands, the skin of the left thigh, the skin of both legs, the skin of both feet. And then I took oral, penile, scrotal, and rectal swabs. And then of all the fragments of skin that were recovered separate from the decedent, I swabbed the skin surfaces of those as well. So those were 12 separate fragments of skin were each swabbed. After that, they're air dried, packaged, and given to law enforcement.
And that process was followed in this case with respect to the integrity of the evidence.
That is correct.
Is it typical that you obtain a swab that's intended to be either a swab or some sort of evidence that is intended to be a known sample for the deceased?
That is correct.
What is the typical process for that?
Typically, we collect what's referred to as a DNA card.
Okay, so I just wanted to answer this question about his mom not hearing any of this. So I believe that his mom and her boyfriend were kind of in and out, and also they were up on the second. The crime took place in the basement, and then there's the first floor, and then there is this third floor, really. Which that's where their bedroom was, the mom and the boyfriend. And I believe they were in their part of the time, but they were also arguing. So there was a lot of in and out. But like I said, I'm really going to work on this timeline after court today and see if we can clear up some of this stuff. It is an incredibly sad, violent crime that she perpetrated here. I am shocked. That's why I've been quiet.
Which is a blood spot card that is air dried and then subsequently can be used for DNA testing.
Do you know if that was used in this case?
Yes, it was.
Do you know if you also did a buccal swab in this case, or a swab from the inside of the mouth of the decedent?
That's correct. That was with my oral swab that I took earlier.
Nothing further at this time.
Cross-examination, Mr. Freilich.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Chankita, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Did you determine the time of death and the date of death for the deceased?
At best, I can determine approximately how long a person has been dead. But in terms of determining the time of death and the date of death, we list the time where they're examined by a medical professional.
This particular case, you were contacted by the Brown County Medical Examiner, or Petra Schwab, correct?
She was our Petra Schwab was our lead investigator at the time. That's correct.
Okay. She's not a medical examiner, but she's a director, correct?
So the reason that she changed her name from Coronado to Schabusiness is because her husband, his last name is, oh gosh, Sha something. It's not Schabusiness. And he is the one that gave her the last name Schabusiness, and she used it. That's why. Okay, here we go. Sorry. I'll look up the boyfriend, or not the boyfriend, excuse me, the husband's name. Allie covered it last night. She read all of the Facebook posts that he had made. So you should definitely check that out.
I believe now her title is Director of Operations, correct?
And she contacted you to secure your assistance with the investigation in this particular case?
That is correct.
Were you contacted on February 23rd of 2022?
I believe that is correct.
Okay. And you were briefed on some of the issues or what may or may not have happened, correct?
That is correct.
And then you traveled from Madison to where the location on Stony Brook Lane, or where did you go?
That is correct. I traveled to the home on Stony Brook Lane
Okay.
in Green Bay.
And do you recall the time that you got there, roughly? Was it in the
Unfortunately,
morning?
not offhand. I believe it was in the morning, but it's difficult to say. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a while.
All right. Fair to say that the facts with regards to this case or the circumstances were quite unusual based on your training and experience. Is that fair?
Could you describe what you mean by unusual?
You don't often see situations where there are body parts all over, correct?
I think my line of work is unfortunately very different from others. Fragmentation of people is very common. Motor vehicle accidents, train accidents, people who have jumped from tall buildings or been hit by a subway train. That's not unusual for me. It's something that I see quite often.
How about a severed head in a bucket and body parts in different locations? Is that unusual for you?
I would say it's not a common occurrence. That's correct.
It's different, correct?
Correct.
And would you agree that those particular facts make it a little bit more challenging when you have to do your autopsy and your testing and your swabs and your analysis? Is that fair?
In what sense, sir?
In the sense that you essentially have to try to understand the global picture. Is that fair?
That's correct.
And so on this particular date, February 23rd of 2022, you went to the Stony Brook Lane property, to the house, and you went inside.
That is correct.
You conferred with several detectives, correct?
I would say
Ms.
yes.
Schwab was there. Is that fair?
True crime crazy.
correct.
Yes.
And you found human remains in different locations, correct?
That is correct.
You found a head and a penis and testicles in a black bucket, correct?
That is correct, at the base of the stairs.
And then you found some other body parts in a duffel bag called a Jimmy Choo bag on a entertainment center, correct?
I believe so, yes. I believe that was the dark blue bag on the dresser. I'm not very familiar with bags, unfortunately, but yes, I can say color at least. Yes.
Okay, sure. Inside that blue bag, as you say, there were lots of plastic shopping bags in there, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Was it
I believe she's playing
hard
matching
or
to mansion.
difficult
No,
to-
no, whatever.
understand what you were actually looking at when you were removing these items from the bag due to having plastic bags inside?
I would say no. I'm fairly comfortable with plastic bags. They're often seen at scenes. And then the recovery of the individual pieces, identifying them, of course, is something that I do fairly regularly. So I was able to start saying, okay, this is clearly a piece of this. This is clearly a piece of that. As we began to gather the inventory, that becomes a very important part of determining if the entire body is present or whether there might be other pieces at another location or destroyed.
As you moved along in the basement of 829 Stony Brook Lane, you moved towards a pink and black Under Armour backpack, correct?
That is correct.
There were more human remains in there, correct?
That is correct.
And did you know that these remains belong to one person, or did you have a concern that, did you have any concerns about that?
Very much. My goal was to determine whether or not there might be more than one person present. So in other words, if I found, for example, 2 patellas from the left side, or if I found 2 left arms, then I would be concerned that there might be more than one decedent present.
And then as you went through the basement, did the detectives follow you? Did you take the lead, or how did that kind of work?
Typically what's done is the law enforcement has the jurisdiction or the investigation of the scene, of the surrounding circumstances. But the investigation of the body and the examination of the body falls under the jurisdiction of the medical examiner. So in this case, also because our goal is to try to prevent contamination and preserve as much evidence as possible, we took the lead, where we are wearing Tyvek suits and gloves and masks and trying to collect things in as clean and preserved a way as possible. So we took the lead on that, and law enforcement remained in the background.
This wasn't a perfect situation as far as the basement was concerned, because there was lots of clutter down there. Is that fair?
That's correct, yes.
There's like a table, Pac-Man machine, all kinds of other items, correct?
That is correct.
You recall seeing 3 mattresses stacked on each other?
Yes, I do.
And then there was another container. Was it such that it was a blue tote?
Yes, there was. I believe it was towards the head of the bed.
And there were human remains in the blue tote, correct?
That is correct.
And on top of the tote, there was blankets or clothing items. Is that fair?
I believe there were, yes.
So fair to say that some of these items that you were attempting to collect may have been tampered with or tainted in some way because of other items being put on top or plastic bags being utilized?
In what way, sir?
If you could just answer my question with due respect.
If my interpretation of tainted with means that DNA evidence could have been lost potentially, or DNA evidence could have been contaminated, I would say that certainly any object that would have come in contact with the remains could potentially transfer or wipe away DNA evidence. So for example, if the plastic bags had other people's DNA on it, that can be transferred onto the skin surface or body surfaces. If the tote bag had other people's DNA on it, that also can be transferred onto the body surfaces of what's been placed in there. If the bedding or bed sheets also had other people's DNA on it, that could be, or hair samples or fingernail clippings, that also could be transferred onto the body surfaces. So if I understand the question correctly, I think that that's about as good an answer as I can give.
You answered it. I appreciate that.
Perfect.
Did you see evidence of drug usage down in the basement on Stony Brook Lane?
Yes, I did.
Did you see a meth pipe down there and a gem baggie with crystal-like substance?
I believe I saw a glass pipe. I think I recall it was white in color. And then there was, I believe, a small green baggie with a powdery crystalline substance inside.
Did you see any evidence of drugs or drug substances on the decedent's mouth or face?
I did not.
Did you swab for that?
The face was swabbed, yes.
With regards to your report, did you indicate that the deceased had possible acute intoxication due to the combined effects of methamphetamine, amphetamine, cocaine, and marijuana?
That is correct.
From your analysis and assessment and examination of the body, did you in any way opine or conclude that drugs had anything to do with the death of Mr. Therian?
It is my medical opinion that the drugs did not have anything to do with the death of Mr. Therian.
Have you had cases where people overdose on methamphetamine,
Yes, I have.
resulting in death?
Yes, I have.
How do you know that that didn't happen in this particular case?
I know that that did not happen in this particular case because of the extent of hemorrhaging that's present within the decedent's neck and head. In other words, these are antemortem injuries when he still had circulation. In other words, he was still able to bleed. So as a result, I have bruising and contusions of the neck muscles. I have deep hemorrhages of the soft tissues all the way down to the cervical spine. And I have numerous blown hemorrhages of the eyes and oral mucosa and facial skin. To have these, you have to have circulation. You have to have blood pressure. Without it, you'll not get these injuries. You can strangle or stab or punch or hit a dead body as much as you want. But without circulation and without that blood pressure, you're not going to get this kind of hemorrhage.
Do you know if drugs such as methamphetamine could have caused the protuberance of the tongue in the deceased?
Methamphetamine causing protuberance of the tongue?
Yes.
It's not been my experience that it causes that.
When you received the remains in the body bags, was there anything unusual with the manner or way you received the items at the Dane County Medical Examiner's office? Did you have any concerns with what you received?
Mel, I'll have to go back and listen to that to understand the what they mean by that, the context. Hold on a second. As far as the questioning, so there's two schools of thought on this. Okay, the truth of the matter is, in this part of the trial, like Pepper already pointed out about how there's two phases. In this portion of the trial, the burden is on the state. So the truth of the matter is, he actually doesn't have to cross-examine the witness at all. The burden is on the state. The defense never has to really do anything, to be honest. I think he is asking questions because he's trying to. I think he's actually going to attempt to put in an alternate suspect or suspects, which I cannot imagine what I mean, it is what it is. So, yeah, sometimes they're not the same. So I think I need to look into all of the things. But what he was asking specifically about methamphetamine causing, could it have been an overdose and then he was dismembered? That's really what he's trying to get to. But because of all the petechial hemorrhaging, the medical examiner was like, no. So there you go. All right. So he is trying. I think he's actually, you guys, going for an alternate suspect. But I don't know if he is going to take the additional step of actually naming the alternate suspect. So we'll have to keep watching. All right, here we go.
If I understand the question correctly, did I have any concerns about the manner in which the remains were brought to me or delivered to me?
Yes.
I did not.
How did you get those items? They obviously were packaged up at the Stony Brook Lane property, correct?
That is correct. And I participated in the packaging.
And then can you take me from there, how they arrived at the Dane County Medical Examiner's office?
Of course.
Thank you.
Again, as the bodies were packaged up, the security seal was placed on the bags to show that the body bags are intact and undisturbed. At that point, we contact the driver. The driver from our office comes up to Brown County, collects the remains, then places them into their van. The van is refrigerated, which allows for as best preservation of the remains as we can, and then the body is taken back to Dane County. At that point, the body is checked in to our secured cooler by one of our investigators, and then the body is kept in that secured cooler until such time that we can perform the autopsy examination, which in this case was the 25th.
Thank you. Have you been involved in cases where it's a situation where it's death by asphyxiation, where people engage in choking kind of behaviors?
If I understand the question correctly, yes, I have had cases where people have died from asphyxiation due to choking or strangulation as a mechanism. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, sir. You can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, everyone.
State's next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. State calls Deputy Bryce.
Okay, sir, if you want to just step up right over here, and then before you have a seat, if you could turn and face her, raise your right hand, she'll place you under oath.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter now before the court, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat and state your name for the record.
Deputy Bryce Haynes, Haines.
Okay, and Mr. Saunders, the witness is yours.
All right, can you tell us how you're employed?
I'm employed as a patrol deputy with the Brown County Sheriff's Office,
And how long have you been employed in that capacity with the Brown County Sheriff's Office?
approximately 2.5 years.
And is that the totality of your law enforcement experience?
I worked for approximately 1.5 years in the village of Black Creek as a police officer.
But then for the last 2.5 years with the Sheriff's Office?
Correct.
And as a patrol deputy, do you sometimes get called out to respond to incident locations in the county of Brown?
Yes.
And you also have occasion to assist other jurisdictions with their own cases?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. I want to ask you, Deputy, then about February 23rd of 2022. Do you recall if you were on duty on that day?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And were you dispatched to a residence on Eastman Avenue on that day?
Yes, I was.
And what was the reason you were dispatched to that location?
So deputies were requested to assist the Green Bay Police Department in locating a vehicle that was involved with what was dispatched as a suspicious situation. They requested that we look for a gold town and country van.
And do you recall approximately what time that call would have come in to your department?
I was dispatched at roughly 4:15 a.m.
And this is on February 23rd?
Correct.
And was there information provided that this van may be located at that Eastman address?
It was my understanding that the possible suspect had been driving the vehicle and staying at that residence.
And did you ultimately arrive at 2523 Eastman Avenue?
Yes.
And is that in the city of Green Bay?
Yes, it is.
And did you locate that reported gold van in the vicinity of that address?
Yes, it was located on the north side of the building.
Deputy, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 80. Do you recognize what Exhibit 80 depicts?
Yes, this is a picture of the gold Chrysler Town and Country minivan.
And the depiction in Exhibit 80, does that appear to be consistent with the scene around the Eastman Avenue address that you encountered?
Yes,
on
it
February,
does.
Sorry, on February 23rd?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And the general layout of where the vehicles were positioned and everything, that's consistent with how you first encountered the scene?
That is correct.
Okay. I'd move Exhibit 80.
The objection?
No objection.
80 is received.
And I'd ask permission to publish as well.
No objection.
That'll be published to the jury.
Okay, then Deputy, it's behind you, but also there's a screen in front of you if that's easier. So are we looking at Exhibit 80 now presently on the screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So when you arrived at this Eastman address, where are you positioned?
I was positioned, the van's facing south. I was positioned to the northeast of the van.
And when you arrived, you mentioned you were dispatched at 4:15. Do you recall when you would have gotten to this address?
Approximately 4:20, 4:25, probably about 5 to 10 minutes to respond.
And from that time, did you maintain a sort of visual on the vehicle?
Yes, once the vehicle is located.
Did you observe whether the van was occupied or unoccupied at that point?
It appeared unoccupied.
Did you see during the time you were there any other person walk to or from that vehicle?
No, I did not.
And then how long were you on scene for?
I'm unsure exactly how long I was on scene, maybe 10, 15 minutes.
And when would you have left?
I was relieved by an officer from the Green Bay Police Department.
So you were assisting, I guess, Green Bay, and then once they got there, you sort of left it to them.
That is
fair to
correct.
say?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you, sir. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Mr. Freilich.
Deputy Haynes, what time were you relieved by the Green Bay police officer?
I would guess approximately 5 a.m. I do not know the exact time.
Okay. And you were called to go right to the Eastman Avenue apartment complex?
That is correct.
And it's a larger apartment complex where people live, correct?
Correct.
And when you got there on February 23rd of 2022, it was fairly dark outside, correct?
Yes.
And there was snow on the ground, right?
Correct.
And were you told which vehicle to look for?
Yes, we were given the description as well as the license plate for the vehicle.
Did you arrive there by yourself?
No, myself along with two other deputies and our patrol sergeant arrived on scene.
Okay. Did you get there first?
I arrived first, I believe.
Okay.
We all arrived roughly at the same time.
All right. You took your own squad car?
Correct.
When you got out, then what did you do? Did you walk?
I did not get out of my patrol vehicle. I did not approach the vehicle.
Okay. You just parked behind it?
I parked to the northeast of the vehicle, not directly behind the van.
Okay. You didn't get out and walk around the perimeter of the van, is that fair?
That is correct. I did not do that.
And that picture that you saw, the back of that Town and Country minivan, it had all snow on the back window, right?
Correct.
And there was a car to the left and a car to the right of it, correct?
Yes.
And would you say that these vehicles were kind of parked fairly close to each other?
Yes.
When you were sitting in your squad car, Could you see inside of the Town and Country minivan?
I could see the side windows. I could not tell if anyone was in the vehicle or not.
Were the windows tinted?
It was dark. I can't tell you if they were tinted any regularly or not.
Okay. Did you see any person, well, strike that. Did you put any police tape out there?
I did not.
When the other Green Bay police officer arrived, then you just left?
Correct.
Did you see anybody walking around the van or in front of the van while you were there?
No.
And the entire time that you were there, you were sitting in your squad?
Correct.
And you didn't see anybody come in or out of that apartment complex?
No, I did not.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Any redirect?
No, thank you.
Thank you. You can step down. Next witness?
State calls Officer Garth Russell.
I think what he is going to do is say that the state has failed to meet their burden of proof, that it was Schabusiness who dismembered the body, and it was Schabusiness and Schabusiness alone that put the body parts
Sir, if
in
you
her
wanna
Town
step
and
up here,
Country,
and then
because
before you have a seat, if you can turn
there
and face her,
was a
raise your
long
right hand,
period of
wait to stand
time,
under oath.
and
And then I believe the media is aware of the situation with the video, correct?
there was
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter now before the
time
court, so help
when
you God. Have a
the
seat.
residents
Repeat
of
your name for record.
of Shad's mom's house didn't know who was entering and exiting the home, so
Can you tell
anybody
us,
could have
how you're employed?
entered and exited at
I'm a
any
police
point.
officer with the city of Green Bay
All right, and how long have you been employed as a police officer?
since October of 2016.
And prior to that time, do you have other law enforcement experience?
Yes, I was a military policeman in the United States Army
For about how long?
for approximately 2 years.
And then since 2016, you've been employed with the Green Bay Police Department?
Yes,
I want to ask you about February 23rd of 2022. Were you working as a police officer with the Green Bay Police Department on that day?
yes, I was.
And do you recall being dispatched to a residence on Eastman Avenue on that day?
Yes,
And to where were you dispatched on Eastman Avenue?
I believe the address was 2353 Eastman Avenue.
Is that a house? Is that an apartment building? Is that a duplex? Can you describe that?
It is an apartment building.
And why were you dispatched to that residence on Eastman?
I was dispatched to that residence. I was asked by Sergeant Bresser, who was the supervisor on shift, to first relieve the deputies on scene there because they were on scene, I guess, waiting on an individual to arrive. And I was also tasked with assisting in the locating of a gold Chrysler van and a person associated with that van and that address.
So prior to your arrival, you were informed that sheriff's deputies had already located the vehicle?
I believe the sheriff's deputies were on scene. I don't remember if they already located the vehicle or not.
But you were told to go to that area?
Yes.
All right. And when you got there, what do you observe?
When I got there, I subsequently walked into the parking lot with me and a few other officers, and we were told to look for this van, and then we were told to see if there was anything strange happening with the van or anything. So we walked the parking lot, saw the van, and then we went from there.
The van that you reported seeing, is that the same gold minivan that you were kind of looking for?
Yes.
All right. And you mentioned you were sort of walking around the van area. What happens next?
So while walking around the van, the marker lights on the van blinked twice, indicating that somebody was manipulating the keyless entry system into the van. Then once that happened, I think approximately 10 seconds later, someone came out of the apartment complex.
And the person that came out of the apartment complex, did you have contact with that person?
Yes, I did.
And did you ultimately identify that person?
Yes, I did.
Who did you identify her as?
I identified her as Taylor Schabusiness.
The person who you had contact with on February 23rd,
Chick Tracy.
as they exited the apartment complex.
Thank
Do you
you
see
for
him or
being
her in
here.
court today?
Yes, I do.
Welcome,
Could you please
Danielle.
point
I'm
out
going to
what
work
they're
on it
wearing,
when
what
court's
they're saying
over.
for
It might
us?
be
She's
might
sitting
take me a minute though.
to my right. She's wearing a black, what appears to be a thin jacket and a dark blue dress with a blue and white floral pattern.
I'd ask the record to reflect the witness identified the defendant.
Excuse me,
Will
she
so
is
reflect. No
wearing
objection.
the shower curtain from the
What happened when
1972
you
Ramada Inn.
observed Ms. Schabusiness then?
We observed Mr. Business. I made contact with her. I
like
subsequently placed her in
that.
handcuffs and
Patricia, that's
noticed,
cute.
what appeared to be dried blood on her sweatshirt, the front and the back.
And did you make any note of
Spot on as
any,
always,
potential,
or whatever.
evidence on her hands?
Yes, I also saw what appeared to be smeared blood on both her hands.
During this time, you were working as a patrol officer?
Yes,
Is that
I
right?
was.
And were you utilizing any body-worn camera on that day?
Yes, I was.
And was it operational in your belief?
Yes, it was.
When a particular incident or an arrest is made, is there a way for you to sort of save that body camera footage to a system?
Yes.
Does that allow you the chance to then review that at a later date?
Yes.
Oh,
And then
thank you,
do enter that into
Dreamscape.
your department system?
Yes.
And have you also had the chance to review portions of your body camera footage prior to testifying
As
today?
Clary
Would you recognize it if you were to see it here in
from
court?
Yes.
Still
Judge, I'd
Magnolias
ask
has
them
said,
to play approximately
laughter
4
through
minutes from
tears
Exhibit
is my
81.
favorite emotion.
The objection, Mr.
No.
Trillick?
No.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you.
I think we'll dim the lights.
They's dimming the lights. There's not going to be a glare. Do we get to watch? Because I want to watch. Yes, KPM. If you don't have anything nice to say, come sit next to me. I love Clary. I love Weezer. I love that whole movie. It's the only chick movie I really like. It's Still Magnolia. It's the only one.
Play at 0 minutes, 0 seconds.
Oh, we finna see old Taylor Schabusiness. Brace yourselves, y'all. Look at all that snow. Girl, it's like the land of penguins. I wonder that a little bit too, Squeaky Wheel, but then sometimes it feels like she does remember. It's weird.
Nothing. Hey. Is this blood? Does this look like blood to you? Or am I just tripping? Bloody footprint? You see this right here?
Could possibly be blood.
Hey, who did that? Hi, Taylor. How's it going? Officer Russell with the Green Bay Police Department. Just make sure you ain't got nothing on you here. With Taylor. Taylor, you have one more for you. You have one more for your wrist. Just put your hands behind your back, please. Anybody else in your apartment? You got blood on your hands here, too. No, on your hands. Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to. What apartment? What apartment are you in? Do you have it? Do you come up? On the double. Which apartment? One is what they came back to. Yeah, go. Guys, hurry and get here now. Watch this window right here. Watch this window right here. Gun. Go in here. Go in here. Come to the back of the apartments. That's where we are. You come over here. 2 more will be fine. If 84 is here, you have contact with the mail.
Hands up! Walk out towards me!
Have a seat. Have a seat.
Out towards me! Get on the ground!
Who else is in the apartment? Be straight up.
Thomas.
Tomes? Who else? Just Tomes? Is he armed? Nobody's armed?
Nobody's armed.
You sure?
I'm sure. You're not police! Everybody get here! Announce yourself now!
Go ahead. Negative, we got it up here.
Okay, and for the record, 4 minutes of that exhibit, actually the entirety of that exhibit was played into the record. Officer, having reviewed that video, do you recognize the video that was depicted?
Yes.
Was that consistent with the body camera worn footage that you were wearing on February 23rd?
Yes.
I'd move exhibit 81.
Any objection? No.
Received. So I want to ask just a few questions then, Officer. There was an earlier part in the clip where you had noted some area of suspected blood. Is that right?
That's right.
And what do you recall observing?
It looked like a couple of drops of blood in front of the vehicle, along with a footprint that was within or that encompassed one of the drops.
And I guess was that pointed out to other officers who were on scene?
Yes.
You mentioned then the lights of the vehicle were activated and sort of flash. Is that right?
Yes.
And then about 10 seconds later, Mr. Business exited the apartment?
Yes.
At the end of the video, where were you walking Mr. Business to?
I was walking her to my patrol car.
And was she, I guess, put in the back of the squad car?
Yes, she was.
Was there any further questioning or anything done at that point?
The only question I asked Mr. Business was if she knew why we were there.
Okay. And then did you ultimately just transport her then to the Green Bay Police Department?
Yes.
When you got to the Green Bay Police Department, what further steps did you take?
We placed her in interview room 3, I believe, where I had Officer Kenny assist me with taking photographs of what looked like smeared blood on her hands and on her clothing. I also had her remove the sweatshirt that had what appeared to be blood on it, as well as her socks and her shoes.
And then was another officer requested to assist with the further removal of some clothing?
I believe after I left the room, there was another officer that might have been asked to assist with removal of some additional clothing so that Mr. Business could get temporary clothing, because we wanted all her clothes evidence.
The clothing items that you took, did those stay within your custody and control?
Yes,
And did you subsequently enter them into evidence at the Green Bay Police Department?
I did.
I guess in totality on February 23rd, in your interactions with Ms. Schabusiness, did you ask sometimes some questions of her?
I didn't ask questions of her. I more like commands like, hey, please remove your jacket. Please remove your hat. Let me get your shoes. Sit here. Just commands, not really questions.
The commands that or requests that you were giving Ms. Schabusiness, was she in that time following those?
Yes, she was.
Was she in some instances responding appropriately
Yes, she was.
in the context of your questions and commands?
Yes, she was.
For instance, did you ask, if there was anyone else in the room at that point?
I did ask her.
Did you provide a response?
She did.
And was there a person located in the apartment?
Yes, there was.
Thank you, officer. I have nothing further.
Cross-examination, Mr. Freilich.
Thank you. Officer Russell, good morning.
Good morning.
So you were asked to go directly to 2353 Eastman Avenue on February 23rd of 2022, correct?
Yes.
Who asked you to go over there?
I was dispatched here, and Sergeant Brister also instructed me to go there.
Sergeant Brester?
Yes.
Okay, did you go by yourself?
Several other officers were sent to the location.
And what was the purpose of you going over there?
The purpose of me going over there was to relieve deputies that were on scene, along with assist with the overall incident.
Were you going over there to look at a vehicle or talk to people or what? Do you know?
I was tasked, me and other officers were tasked with locating anyone who was last seen with the threat earlier.
Okay. So you were asked to go and see if you could make contact with Taylor Schabusiness?
Correct.
Have you been involved in death scene or homicide scene investigations prior to this particular situation?
Yes.
How many?
Death scenes, I can't recall a few, and at least one other homicide scene that I can recall.
Okay. And so on this particular date, you drove over there and you parked your SUV, correct?
That's correct.
And then you walked up, correct?
Yep.
And it was dark and there was a lot of snow on the ground. Is that fair?
It was dark. There was snow on the ground. The apartment buildings provided light to the parking lot, though.
Was it kind of a glared look outside that apartment complex?
Wouldn't necessarily say a cleared look. It was dark, snow on the ground. The lighting from the apartment complex was adequate enough to illuminate the parking lot.
Okay. And is it fair that there are several vehicles all parked in front of the building at 2353 Eastman Avenue?
That is correct.
And did you have a license plate as you walked up?
Yes.
Okay. And on that video, was that you that was shining the light, the flashlight?
Yes.
You found this gold minivan, correct?
I'm sorry?
You found the gold minivan?
I believe before as we were walking up, the minivan might have been found already.
Okay. You walked around the minivan, correct?
Yes.
The vehicles that were on either side of the minivan were parked fairly close, so there wasn't a lot of room. Is that fair?
There was adequate room for people to get between the vehicles, the minivan and the vehicles parked on either side.
You walked on the driver's side of the minivan, correct?
I did.
Then you walked around the front of it?
I did.
At some point then, you heard a keyless entry system or some kind of beep?
I didn't hear any beeps. What I saw was a flashing of the parking lights on the vehicle, indicating that somebody might have manipulated a keyless entry system to the vehicle.
Okay. And how many officers were there at the time that you were there?
It was myself, Officer Fisher, along with Officer Whitman, and then Lieutenant Buckman was on the scene somewhere.
And then you, correct?
Yes.
So 4.
I believe other officers arrived while we were on scene as well.
And at some point, you made contact with Taylor Schabusiness on the step outside the door, correct?
I did.
She was under the overhang, is that correct?
She came out of the common entrance for the apartment complex.
And you asked what her name was, correct?
I introduced myself to her and told her, so I introduced myself to her, if memory serves me correctly. I already knew who she was based on a records check while driving to the scene, looking at her mugshots via police records, which are accurate and reliable as they're kept in the ordinary course of business. I knew what she looked like.
Okay. And are you the one that handcuffed her?
I was.
And when you had contact with her, did you find her to be under the influence of drugs?
No.
Did you ask her if she was using drugs that night?
I did not.
You didn't ask anything about drugs at all, correct?
I did not.
Did she seem off as far as maybe being tired or just acting odd?
She did not.
What about her eyes? Did her eyes seem to be closed or like slits?
She seemed normal to me.
Okay. So then she was cooperative with you, correct?
She was.
When you handcuffed her, did you notice that she had some cuts on her thumbs or on her fingers?
I did not at that time. I did, however, notice a cut on her finger while we were taking pictures of her at a later time at the police department.
Okay. After you got to the Green Bay Police Department, correct?
Yes.
You were working with Officer Kenny then at that time and you were having him take pictures with his phone, correct?
He used my department issued phone to take the pictures.
Okay. Ultimately, you found out that she went to St. Vincent's Hospital to get some medical care for the lacerations on her fingers, or on her thumbs, correct?
I did not know that she went to St. Vincent's to get any medical care.
Okay. Find any knives on her?
I remember retrieving some items from her person. I don't remember if there was a knife there or not.
Any
when
guns?
I searched her incident to arrest, I don't remember if she had a knife on her or not.
Any guns on her?
I'm sorry?
Any guns?
No.
Okay. At some point then, after she was handcuffed, you had some safety concerns, correct?
Yes.
And other officers did as well?
Yes, other officers had safety concerns inside the apartment.
Okay. And so they unholstered their service revolvers, correct?
Duty weapons.
Duty weapons. And then they directed their attention to the hallway of apartment 1, correct?
They directed their attention to an apartment that was on the lower level inside that common entrance area.
And that was Taylor Schabusiness's apartment 1?
I am not sure who the apartment is leased to. I just know that she was associated to that apartment per dispatch.
And the other officers were directing their attention to Scott Holmes from apartment 1, correct?
I'm sorry?
The other officers were directing their attention to a person by the name of Scott Holmes in apartment 1, is that fair?
Yes, they were directing their attention to a male inside the apartment.
And he was ordered to the ground at gunpoint, correct?
I remember them ordering him to come out. I don't remember whether he was on the ground at gunpoint or not. My attention was on Ms. Schabusiness at the time.
And you had Ms. Schabusiness come in and basically stand on the steps and ultimately sit down on the steps, correct? You gave her those commands?
I did.
And there was a wall blocking the stairs and the hallway. Is that fair?
So the stairway was to the right of the hallway, and there was a short wall. I had her sit on the steps, and you can partially see outside in the hallway by where I was at, but I couldn't see what was going on by the apartment.
Okay. And then at some point then after Mr. Holmes was secured, then you walked Ms. Schabusiness to your cruiser, your SUV, correct?
Yes,
And you had her take a seat in the back seat, correct?
I did.
And then you asked her why, do you know why we're here, correct?
Yes.
You rolled the window down or something, correct?
I may have rolled the window down.
And did she say a warrant? Yeah, a warrant or words
Yes.
to that effect?
Yes.
Okay. And then you rolled the window up and then you transported her over to the Green Bay Police Department. Is that fair?
I did transport her to the Green Bay Police Department.
That gold minivan that you looked at, that belonged to Scott Holmes, correct?
I don't know who the minivan belonged to.
Okay, nothing further. Thank you.
Any redirect? Mr.
We
Saunders? Okay, thank you, sir. You can step down. State's next witness.
Lieutenant Buckman.
All right, if you could just step up right over here, sir, and before you have a seat, if you can turn and face her and raise your right hand, she'll place you under oath.
Hey, Amelia. Good to see you, babe. Hey, Rin. I just realized
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the
who
whole
you
truth, and
are.
nothing but the truth in the matter now before the court. So
Good to
help you
see
God.
you.
Please have a
Are
seat
y'all
and
going to
state your
answer me?
name
I'm
for the
getting very
record.
upset. Just kidding. Not really upset.
My
I'm
name is
just
Lieutenant
curious.
Tom Buckman, Buchma.
Thank you, Emily. I think I might do it
Jose, the witness is
tonight
yours.
because I know
Lieutenant
there's a
Buckman,
lot
can
of
you
people
state
at
how you are
work,
employed
I'm a lieutenant for the Green Bay
and I
Police
want to be able to
Department.
chat with them too.
and how long have you been with the Green Bay Police Department?
I've been with the Green Bay Police Department since
Plus, we can speed it
2009.
up. Know what I mean?
But I've been in law enforcement with two other agencies.
I know. I
since
want to see it too, but I
1996.
want everybody to be able to see it.
And
You know
you
what I
indicated
mean?
your current position is lieutenant. How long have you been a lieutenant?
Since
Oh, I'm so glad
2013.
your bum is better, Amelia.
And prior to your
No, you
practical law
haven't, babe.
enforcement experience, do you have any education and training to be a law enforcement officer?
Yes. I graduated from
Squeaky, I
Loyola
don't
University
know
in
if they're
Chicago
gonna
with
play
a
it in
bachelor's
full,
degree in criminal
but they're going
justice.
to play
And then
it
I
for the
attended
jury because in the
Illinois
opening
State Police
statement.
Academy.
Hold on, let me
and
let me
then
turn him
the,
down just real quick
um,
because I feel like I'm yelling over.
equivalent.
So in the opening statements, the prosecutor said that you're going to hear in her own words what she said. So they're going to definitely play it. How much they play, because I can't remember it's how long it is. And so yeah. Plus I want to hear it, but I also think that doing it tonight will be better. A, because then we can all enjoy it as a family, right? Because we got people who are still at work and they're part of the ward fam. But also that'll be a whole separate thing. And then people can, if they just want to watch when they want to, if they just want to watch the interrogation, they can. So maybe that's what we should do. Watch it together as the whole ward fam. But this is, I believe, the officer who spoke with her, because I remember him testifying in one of the pre-trials. So here we go.
I was informed that there was a gold minivan at that location that was associated with the defendant in the case.
Were you aware who the registered owner of that particular minivan was?
Yes.
Who was that?
Last name was Thones.
And you indicated you were informed that that van was associated with the defendant. Who are we talking about?
It would be Taylor Schabusiness.
And did you then travel out to the 2353 Smith Avenue address?
Yes.
What did you do upon arrival there?
Well, there were Brown County deputies that had discovered the van, and they had kept the van under surveillance until they were receiving further instructions on what to do with the van. So myself and other Green Bay officers arrived on the scene and took over surveillance of the van and the apartment building until we received further instructions.
What did your surveillance entail?
Well, we just watched the area where the van was parked at the apartment complex. After a short time, I spoke with a lieutenant that was working the case and asked him what he wanted us to do with the van. And they informed us that they didn't know at that point in the investigation whether Schabusiness was potentially another victim or a suspect, or had the association, what association she had with the victim, or what her role was in the incident. So they told us to approach the van and to try to make contact at the apartment with Taylor Schabusiness and see what we could ascertain from that investigation.
And what steps did you take to do that?
So myself and a couple of officers walked up towards the van. As we approached the van, we looked inside the windows just to see if there was anything, any people inside of it, or any, we knew at that point they hadn't found the body of the victim yet. So we were seeing if there was a body in the van or anything that would stick out as being obvious associated with the crime. As we were stepping next to the van, we were also looking on the ground for footprints leading from the van. I happened to be on the passenger side. I did not see any footprints in the snow at that point from right outside the van. Then while we were standing next to the van doors unlocked. We heard them unlock. And then the parking lights flashed, which is an indicator that somebody is using a key fob to unlock the van.
At that point, what did you do?
So the officers looked at each other, kind of thought, well, somebody just unlocked this van. A couple of seconds later, Taylor Schabusiness walked out the front door. It's the apartment complex it's got a main door that's shared with the apartments inside. She walked out of the main door of the apartment complex. I recognized her immediately because I already looked up her picture. So I recognized her and I immediately started approaching her along with other officers. I told her to keep her hands out of her pockets, and another officer put handcuffs on her and placed her under arrest. She had a warrant at that time. Excuse me. She had a warrant at that time, and we knew about the warrant. So they placed her under arrest for the warrant.
Thank you. Did you make any specific observations of Ms. Schabusiness's person when you approached her?
I did not specifically, but I heard officers talking that she had blood
Objection,
on her.
hearsay. Move to strike.
That's fine.
Okay. I'll
Actually,
sustain the objection. The answer is stricken to the extent that he got it out. So go ahead.
were you able to observe Ms. Schabusiness's face when you approached her?
Yes.
And how did her face appear?
She appeared to be in shock or very surprised to see us. I equate it to a deer in the headlights kind of look, or a child caught with their hand in the cookie jar.
And you indicated that officers then placed her under arrest. Is that correct?
Yes.
Were you present when that happened?
Yes.
And were officers giving commands to Ms. Schabusiness?
Yes.
And was she responding to those commands?
Yeah, she was complying with their commands.
Did she appear to understand what officers were saying?
Yes.
Did she appear to have any difficulty or trouble communicating with officers or following commands?
No.
After Ms. Schabusiness was placed under arrest, what did you do?
I then asked what apartment she came from the officers. They informed me that it was apartment 1. I immediately went inside the apartment building. We knew that we had to secure the apartment that she was in. Ms. Schabusiness had blood on her hands when she was arrested. So we knew at that point that there was, She was obviously involved in the incident, in the homicide. So we had to secure that apartment for maybe other victims or other suspects or evidence that would be inside that apartment. So we secured the apartment. I approached the apartment door and pulled out my handgun and held the door. The door was ajar at apartment 1, and I had other officers come in. We were going to make entry into the apartment to secure it for any other suspects that might be inside, for officer safety.
Did you make contact with any individuals when you arrived at apartment number 1?
Yes, the registered owner of the vehicle, Mr. Thomes, he opened up the door to apartment 1 before we went inside or did anything. He walked out into the lobby area of the apartment building, the main corridor. I gave him instructions to lay down on the ground, put his hands out at his side. He followed those instructions. He was handcuffed by another officer for officer safety, and he was removed from the hallway so that we could enter the apartment.
Did you do a initial sweep of the apartment for officer safety?
Yes, we did.
And again, the purpose of that was merely to sort of secure it then and maintain it for future evidence collection?
Yes, it was to check for suspects that might be hiding in the apartment, also to look for victims, and then to just secure the apartment. So we were only looking for people at that point.
On that initial sweep, did you notice anything in plain view?
No, I did not.
Did you notice anything else as you were leaving the apartment?
When I was leaving the apartment, I did notice on the floor in the main area where approximately where Mr. Thomes was laying down at when I had commanded him to lay down on the ground, I did see like a tissue that had what looked like to be blood on it and a cigarette. And I pointed those out to Sergeant Schilling. Stayed on scene. I pointed those items out to Sergeant Schilling so that he could let the detectives know that those items were there and whether they wanted to collect them as evidence or not.
And after leaving the apartment, what did you do?
So then I walked out of the apartment and I was informed that there was footprints and possibly a few drops of blood in the snow outside leading up to the apartment building. I then had Officer Whitman, who was on the scene, secure that area with crime scene tape so that it would be preserved for when detectives would come later.
No further questions.
Cross-examination, Mr. Freilich.
Thank you. Lieutenant Buckman, good morning.
Good morning.
Couple questions for you, sir. So on February 23rd of 2022, you were asked to go to the 2300 block of Eastman Avenue.
Yes.
Did you get a call from like at home or what?
Well, they called me at home to report into work. I reported into work and then was instructed by the lieutenant that was at the desk, at the shift commander's desk, to go out to 2300 block of Eastman.
What time did you report into work? Do you know?
I think it was like 4:42 in the morning.
Was that kind of like your normal shift or is that?
No, I would have started at 6 a.m. They called me in early because of the incident.
Okay. What time did you get to the 2300 block of Eastman Avenue? Approximately.
Maybe 10 minutes later.
And you took your own squad car?
Yeah, I took a squad car that was available.
When you got to the apartment complex, did you park near Officer Garth Russell's squad?
I parked at the east end of the complex. I don't remember if I was next to Officer, I might have been next to Officer Russell and Officer Cups. I don't remember exactly who was all next to me. And I think it might have changed at different times depending on where we were stationed on the parking lot.
You had to walk up, correct?
Yeah, we parked our vehicles further away and we walked up on foot.
What's the purpose of parking farther away?
When you approach in the car, it's easier to see a car approaching than it is a a person on foot. And so you want to have that kind of surprise or stealth to be able to walk up on something. If you don't know what you're approaching, we just had a homicide. So we're obviously concerned about people that might be involved in that homicide in the area. We want to approach on foot. You can hear things better if you approach on foot. You can hear, you don't have the car engine noise and the radio from the inside the squad car and whatnot, making additional noise that you won't be able to hear what's going on around you.
And parking back like that, is it true that then you can kind of see the big picture as you walk up to a scene?
Sure.
Okay. You had learned that there was an apparent homicide, correct?
Yes.
And was it true that you were told to try to make contact with Taylor D. Schabusiness?
Yes.
Who told you that?
Lieutenant Bagoon.
Okay. And so you looked up a picture of her to see what she looked like, correct?
Yes, I knew that. I knew her face already because when I was going out to the area, they informed me that Taylor Schabusiness had some sort of relationship with the victim. And so we were going out there because this minivan was associated with Taylor Schabusiness. I didn't know all the details of the homicide because I never went to the scene there. I was just told that this van had an association with Taylor Schabusiness. So when I'm going out there to determine what's going on with Taylor Schabusiness, I wanted to know what she looked like before I got there.
Okay, thank you. Fair to say you'd never met her before, correct?
I don't believe I've ever met her before.
And when you drove to the Eastman Avenue apartment complex, you walked up, did you see the gold Chrysler minivan parked?
Yes.
Where did you see it parked? In relation to like the front door?
So if you go straight out the front door, if you're coming out the door of the apartment building, a few spaces to the right. So not far from the front of the apartment building.
Okay. And is it fair to say that there was a long line of vehicles that were parked in front of the complex? Is that fair?
There are several. Yeah, there's several vehicles parked there.
And were there vehicles parked on either side of the minivan?
I know there was a vehicle parked on the right. I don't remember if there was one parked on the left or not. I think there was, but parked on if you're driving into the spot, the passenger side, because it was pulled forward like you normally would pull into a spot. And then on the passenger side was the side that I approached. And that I remember there being another vehicle there.
Okay. When you approached on the passenger side, did you have a flashlight where you looked in the vehicle? Concerning?
No, I didn't see anything that would spark my attention.
Okay. And when you were approaching the Eastman Avenue apartment complex, was it true that you didn't know, that it was unknown whether Ms. Schabusiness was a suspect or victim? Is that fair?
Right, we didn't know.
But you and other investigating officers were told to be on the lookout for this van, correct?
Yes.
And you found it. You found it parked, correct?
I didn't find it parked. Brown County deputies found it parked.
Then you were told that this is the van that's a concern?
I was told that this was a van associated with Ms. Schabusiness.
Okay. Did you later come to find out that the van was owned by Scott Tomes?
Yes, I knew that when we approached it.
Officer Russell was dealing with Ms. Schabusiness, correct?
Correct.
And your task was to focus on whoever else was inside of apartment 1, correct?
That's correct.
And you drew your duty weapon, correct?
Yes.
And then you walked down the hall?
Yeah, it's a very short hall.
Yeah.
To the front of the apartment.
And you ordered Mr. Tomes, Scott Tomes, to get on the ground?
Yes.
And he complied?
Yes.
Did he get a little feisty with you where he was throwing chairs and wondering or yelling, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah, he didn't really understand what was going on, but He did comply with my orders.
And at least at this point, your investigation was not far enough into it where you could understand what role any of these parties had, correct?
That's correct.
As it relates to the homicide, correct?
That's correct.
And Officer Russell was there, Officer Fisher was there, you were there, is that true?
Yes.
Officer
Cups.
Cups and Officer Whitman was also there, right?
That's correct.
Officer Fisher was the one that handcuffed Scott Tomes, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And you did a safety sweep of the apartment, correct?
Correct.
The apartment 1, right?
Yes.
And fair to say that you did not see anything in plain view that would be associated with a homicide?
That is correct.
You didn't see any large pools of blood, bloody knives, or body parts in the apartment, correct?
I did not see any of those things inside the apartment in plain view.
Okay. And then as you were leaving the apartment, when Mr. Tomes was on the floor outside the apartment, there was a small towel-like item, correct?
Yeah, he was no longer on the floor. It's the approximate spot where he was on the floor.
Okay. But it was by him?
It was by where he was.
Okay. Ms. Schabusiness got taken away before Mr. Tomes was exited out of the apartment complex. Is that fair?
I don't know if she was taken away. When I separated from, okay, so Officer Russell put her in custody, put her in handcuffs, and then I entered the apartment building. I did not see Ms. Schabusiness after that. So I don't know at what point they left. I don't know if she was in the back of a squad car, if she'd left the scene or.
And then after this, you brought Mr. Tomes to a squad car, correct?
I did not.
A different officer did?
Yeah, an officer did.
Okay. Was it Officer Fisher?
I don't know.
Then
I was inside the apartment, clearing the apartment. So
okay.
What happened outside the apartment, I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough. After that, then did you go check around the apartment complex?
Yes, I did.
You checked the dumpsters?
Yep.
And you checked the parking lot for any indication of evidence?
Yes.
Did you find anything?
I did not.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Can you redirect? Okay, thank you, Officer.
Thank you.
Council, I think we're going to break for lunch. It's 11:45. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our lunch break right now, and I'd ask that you be back in the jury room at 1 o'clock, so about an hour.
Okay, you guys. So they're going to go to lunch. And I really do believe they're getting to the interrogation. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to stream after lunch. I'm going to stream tonight, but I have a feeling it's going to be a rather long testimony. And so what I'm going to do is instead of going live at 9, I'm going to go live at like 8:30, 30 minutes early. And then we can also, yeah, the circus peanuts, those are gross. So that we can also like speed it up to 1.5 because I want us to enjoy this as a family, the Ward family. All right. So thank you everyone for being here. If you haven't done so already, give your girl a thumbs up. It helps keep me in the algorithm, get me in the algorithm. And it is a free way to support me and the channel. And with that, I bid you a fond farewell and adieu, and I will see you tonight. Bye.